season, a couple franchises have clearly separated themselves from the competition. The New York Empire are an impressive 8-0, owners of the only perfect record in the league. The Raleigh Flyers are an almost as dominant 7-1 and are looking to return to championship weekend for the first time since 2015. Tonight, it's a rare regular season interdivisional showdown featuring the AUDL's top two teams. The New York Empire and the Raleigh Flyers meet for the first time ever next.
Quit all three of my sports just to play more Ultimate. I've been playing ever since. It's intoxicating when you first start.
The creativity is endless in Ultimate.
You would do anything to catch that disc.
A behind the back flip.
A matchup we've been eagerly anticipating.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you got your popcorn ready for this classic tonight. Welcome to another edition of AUDL Thursday Night Rewind, and it is a privilege to be with you. Evan Lepler, along with the Raleigh Flyers head coach Mike DeNardis and the New York Empire head coach Bryan Jones, ready to relive this tremendous battle between two great teams that obviously went down to the wire and goes down in history as one of the great regular season games ever played. Before we get to Ultimate, let's just catch up. Mike, how are you? How you surviving these days?
Good, surviving. You know, two small kids in the house. There's a lot of madness, but I'm still actually going to work, so that's a positive. Some semblance of normalcy in my life, but my wife is a little bit of a different story, playing dual roles, but you know, it's good. It's good hanging out and, you know, taking a little break from Ultimate.
Ryan, we appreciate you making some time for us. You've been on seemingly every Ultimate Frisbee stream that exists in the past week, and it's for good reason because you're great at analyzing what you see. How's life up in Connecticut?
Good. You know, like Mike, I have two small critters, but instead of kids, they're dogs. So, you know, I think that's like half of a kid equivalent right now. So, you know, they're learning how to play fetch. Everything's going pretty well.
Yeah, I watched the episode of The Office, falling asleep last night, where Pam and Jim just had their second child, and Angela just had a child, and Oscar just got a dog, and Pam was really upset that Oscar kept equating the new dogs to the new kids. So just keep that in mind. That's something to, you know, I don't know. As someone with a child and not a dog, I don't know. I'm with Pam on this one. The Empire and the Flyers. Obviously, you guys were both in first place heading into this game. It was an interdivisional game. If you can get back to where your mindset was that day, like Mike, you had this team with all this hype coming to your building at Wake Med Soccer Park. What was kind of the energy around the team and the level of anticipation for this one?
I think we were really excited to just get a strong test, and you know, it's part of the journey of the season, and I think everyone was super pumped to get an 8-0 team. You know, we're at that time we're 1-2 in the league, and that's a great battle to have and a great test for your home stretch. So yeah, we were all excited. We were pumped. We were missing Noah, but we were pumped because we had most of our people and we were ready to rock.
Yeah, you were missing Noah, and obviously New York. Brian, you guys were without Grant Lindsley, a very important player for you. But I mean, this was another key step for you in your season of growing together. Your first year coaching the Empire. I mean, were there nerves going into this game? What was kind of the mentality?
I don't think there were any nerves. I think, you know, personally, I was really excited to face off coaching-wise against Mike and of course, David Allison. And so I think anytime we get together, there's some creativity on the field. And so that was something I was really excited about. But for us, you know, we all got down a day early, got to stay in the hotels nearby. So this was a really good team experience for the Empire. And, you know, pulling out the W at the end was pretty good too.
Good stuff. Well, this was a game that I really was looking forward to all season long. it arrived. I was on the call with Kurt Gibson, who was injured at that point in the season. And to be honest, like Kurt was still and still is a novice broadcaster. Bryan, not nearly the experience of you, but I really felt like he and I hit our stride together in the second half, and it was just such an exciting game. So let's dive in. We're a few minutes past 8 o'clock. Got over 200 viewers on Facebook Live right now. Hopefully that continues to grow. And as we progress tonight, the less I talk, the better. Mike and Bryan, you guys are the great ultimate minds. And folks have already heard me commentate this game once. So, Mike, you look pretty loose on the sidelines there, wearing the same thing that you're wearing tonight.
Yeah, I haven't washed it since then, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, I was excited to play, and, I don't know, Bryan, this would be a question I'd have for you, but these games, are you nervous, going into them, or are you loose in general? How do you feel when you walk into these? Because I think we've both been coaching a while, and I think, people just react differently, so I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty loose. This was fun. I think, one thing that we're going to have a lot of fun time bonding over tonight is probably our respect for Jack Williams. But things were a little hairy because I think Jack was running for his flight on Friday because he didn't realize that Friday in New York City rush hour starts at like 2 p.m. So Jack made his flight. We were ready to go.
So, yeah, what's your, is that the biggest Jack Williams, forget something story? Because he's got plenty on our end, when he forgot a shoe a couple times, like a cleat, one cleat. I don't know how that happens, but there's some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, one of the changes we made for this season is Jack's going to have a personal handler at all times, so that way we make sure he play.
Anyway, I guess we should probably talk about the action here. This first point I thought was pretty smooth for us. I think big key was we were moving laterally. Bobby was doing a really good job kind of attacking and dictating space when he had to. And I thought, something you'll notice through the progression of this game, especially near the end, is we were taking big space, which is important for us. And I think, that point showed a lot of big space, a lot of good cuts that create space. And, that was a good way to start the game, I thought.
Yeah, and I think especially in this game, Henry really has a great one, Henry Fisher. It's been interesting because, I think when we face each other, there's a lot of countering and preparation, last game matters. And so it's kind of like one of those things going into it. I know that that I know there's going to be some changes about the poaching and things of that nature. And so, getting you guys to have a slow possession right away was okay. But that you guys were really comfortable right off the bat. So, it showed that you were prepared. I think later in the game, we had to go to more aggressive for sure.
Yeah. Did you, what would you think, percentage wise you played man versus matchup or, matchup versus junk or, how many kind of tools did you use outside of just traditional matchup? Because I know we definitely used a lot of mixing this game. You'll see it, throughout, but half and half, or do you think a lot of your stuff was transition?
A lot of our stuff was transition. I think for much of the season, I was trying to figure out our offensive side of the ball a lot, and then being able to instill some of the defensive principles late. I think it was a big learning experience coming into the AUDL and seeing what was really going to work defensively with the roster that we had. So this game is a really big turning point because you guys kind of, you have a great, I think, offensive game. You have a couple of mistakes that really weren't our pressure. And so that really changed the way I thought about defense for the rest of the season.
Interesting. Yeah, I thought right off the bat there too, it was same kind of thing we did, except the throw was a little off. But, it seemed like starting this game, both teams were pretty loose and the offense is dictated early and the defense is dictated more late. But you all do a really good job confining spaces once it's on a sideline or, that's something I noticed you did a good job. And I don't know if that's a product of the AUDL or if that's something that you're conscious of for in club too. But I noticed that there was a lot of switching or really hard pressure once it goes to the sideline. I think we got out of it for the most part, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I think, it's any place we can make it a simpler position for the defense. You can really get the defense into a mindset of attacking instead of being passive, because it's just so hard. When you have guys like Henry and Eric and, the remaining players like Bobby and Misha in this game, you really have a hard time of like guarding everything. And you all, like you said, do a really good job of in the big spaces. And so that becomes really difficult to guard. So there's like an element, I think, of slowing you guys down, and then you guys were ready for that. And so that was something that I think, looking at this game, I'm sure I'm going to want to adjust, have adjusted a little bit sooner. Although we did get, we did have a new scheme ready for you guys. We did have a new zone ready that wasn't on tape. And then the rest of it was going to be, if we faced you guys in championship weekend, I didn't want to come in and really game plan heavily and show you a ton. So we have to test a few things out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good MO. I mean, I try to do that, but it's hard. I think you have to practice and play some of your sets you want to use in crunch time, because I think I've learned sometimes in college we try to get a little tricky and those things don't work out because you don't practice them in intense environments a lot. But that I was going to say that the possession here. Earlier there was a huck from Justin Allen that I thought was interesting, because it was, just to mention it. I don't know if they're going to show it on video, but I guess you'll see this replay. Dierich makes actually a really nice distraction on Jack. But this one, it's interesting because Justin was on the flat side, and it's actually a pretty good throw because he throws it to the open side. But if you watch, Tim's like 35 yards deep when he throws it. So it allows, I don't know if it was, I don't know who was playing D there, maybe Connor Klein, but it allows Connor to catch up because it hangs, the curvature of it hangs, and it's on a different third, so it gives him a little time. So I thought that was an interesting kind of tidbit. I think that would have been completed if he threw it. He didn't really have time to throw it earlier, but if Tim was a little more shallow, it probably would have been completed.
Did you give any thought in this game about Jack coming over to New York and then, having a pretty good understanding of what you guys usually like to run in big spaces?
Not really, because we were different. We were so different. We didn't have a lot of the components we had the year before. So I think, while Jack knows all our schemes, by the way, that's a really nice throw by Bobby. If you watch us on replay, it's just a beautiful, this is the exact same throw kind of Justin throws, but he gives Terrence enough time. He gives enough space for Terrence to run under it, and he throws it pretty much, maybe a step too far, but it's almost impossible for a defender to defend that throw.
It's a really nice opposite corner.
Yeah, but Jack, I know Jack is going to use the knowledge he has, but I think with all the different pieces we had, especially with like Eric and Saul and newer players, even though they play on club teams, and it's just different people doing different things, so there's different choices made, which I think makes it harder to game plan against. So this is a little soft zone we play. It's just
you guys always have
pressure. Yeah, go ahead.
When I know I've faced you, this is the type of stuff that I've admired, because I think you guys have an awareness around the disc that is really hard to teach.
Yeah, but, Harper just destroys this in about one half a second, though, because he throws it. Dierich is probably positionally pretty good when Harper throws that, but Harper throws it so quick. He has such a quick release, it's like impossible to defend. But that's David's creation. That one is something he's used for a long time.
Hey, Mike, coming into this game, sorry, Brian, coming into this game, I mean, you're obviously very familiar with Jack, and they don't have Grant, but what's your mindset trying to craft a defensive game plan to slow down this offense with Yacht and Harper doing what he does, and Connor Klein coming into his own, and then obviously Jack as well?
Big thing was we knew they were handler light this game. I think you were missing someone else, right, Brian, on the O-line? Because I think Katz was handling for some of this game, and I don't remember exactly. I just remember thinking, I remember thinking they were handler light for this game. So a lot of the stuff we designed for this particular game was just to try to make them throw as many throws as possible. You'll see here, this is a good, like, little soft zone that Bobby just throws into a poach. Didn't even see it there. But that's kind of the idea, right? Like, we were trying to accomplish that on the under end, like catch a couple cheap ones because we make them throw a lot of, 3, 4, 10-yard passes before they actually get a chunk of yards. So that was kind of the mindset coming into this game. Make them throw, don't give them big space throws immediately. And some teams will let do that because we know we have superior athletes, but we knew, they were probably a little light on the handlers, throwers. So that's kind of how we schemed it.
Yeah, that was something we had to do, I think, because Elliott Lee had the concussion against DC, and so he was out for them. He was able to come back for championship weekend, played for a point, but Ben Katz really proved to be an integral part of the offense from here on out, and that's something that you kind of learn. And there was a lot of things we were figuring out through the course of the season. Like, we didn't reach our final form until the end, and so this was a game that was kind of going to help us decide that because we just knew we were going to get a great opponent. The soft zone stuff is kind of funny because I think there's a lot of similarities in the strategies we like to utilize against other teams. And the other thing that I've noticed, and like having the privilege of coach for tryouts some of your college players, from UNC and some of these players as well, is that I think we probably have the exact same teachings on handler defense. And I think it's really kind of scary how much of a carbon copy there is there.
Yeah, I mean, from the people I've talked to, that's certainly the case. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we really preach when we're teaching new people. When they're in the system, we kind of teach all levels, but reset offense and defense is a really integral part of it. It's something that, I was on an AMA last night and they were talking about how elite teams differ from kind of average or below average club teams. And I was like, the systems are, all teams kind of have systems, but I think the elite teams drill it to a very fine tooth, or go through with a top fine tooth comb. Like, everything is drilled over and over and over positionally. You're constantly refreshing that stuff. And I think that's an important thing for elite teams to understand, or to teams that watch elite teams. All that stuff is ingrained into their systems on a week to week basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question for both of you guys. Sorry, Brian. Obviously, you're both defensive-minded coaches that have put a ton of thought into it. Who is the coach or person in Ultimate that you either modeled your schemes after or most influenced your?
You want to take on first?
Yeah, I think there's the thing is, it's so much fun to steal from everybody. There's a lot of great things. It's really interesting, I think, how you develop certain stuff, because it all of a sudden there's a thought that from one word that can come and become a bunch of schemes and a bunch of things and really spawn a way of thinking. One of the stories that I probably haven't told you yet, Mike, is that in 2017, when I got to coach Jonathan Nethercutt, he said one word to me, didn't tell me what it meant, called it slip. And it became a cornerstone of our strategy. And I'm almost certain that it's it means the same thing to me that it does to you. Trust me when I say that Nut didn't give anything other than just what the word was. And so I think it's really interesting to see you can get from other coaches. So Bob Cryer has some writings, who's been coaching Boulder for a long time, about principles and how to use as principles on team. That's been really valuable. And then building aspect I learned the most from is Ben Van Hoevelen out of New York. What about you, Mike?
It's weird. When I started coaching, there wasn't a lot of ultimate coaches. So I didn't really have a model for it, because most of the coaches were still coached by, most of the teams were still player led. I really admire what Nick Kasmerik's done in Pittsburgh, and he obviously had some really, really amazing success, and those Pittsburgh teams are always very successful. I think those were the things that I started aspiring to when I was coaching UNC and watching how they kind of ran systems and how they went through the process of success. I thought that was, something where if I had somebody to kind of lean on as someone that challenged me as a thinker and as a coach, it's probably, him in particular. So, that would really be the only person I would cite in terms of that. I think a lot of my coaching fundamental, just kind of philosophies come from like other sports, like football, basketball, things like that. Like, I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, so like Tex Winter was really interesting to me, and because he was
Triangle
a schematic genius. Yeah, he's just a schematic genius. So all that stuff really is interesting, and Belichick's really interesting to me because of the way he, like, just the way he goes about things. It's not me, and I don't think it'll ever be me, but like that's something that I think is really interesting, how he handles his team, the media, just like the differences between those things, like how his personality switches. I think those are all interesting kind of aspects of coaching. So you can take elements from a lot of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I think the other, thinking about the game here, me and you are really big systematic thinkers, but coming into it and watching so far, we did not do a good job already of like our basic goals of keeping Terrence and Henry from off the score sheet, or at least scoring quickly. That's something that I think we would have liked to take away earlier, and that became a kind of like, you have these moments where if you don't do plan A early enough, you get a little bit off kilter, and maybe you try to over adjust, and then it creates this like, you take longer to actually settle into where you need to be. And so you guys, despite these kind of couple weird drops and throw Eric to that poach, like I think you guys are pretty much cruising systematically. You just need to kind of be a natural flow.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with lateral movement. I think moving the disc laterally is kind of an underutilized weapon for teams. I think a lot of teams like to create space in lanes, and they don't understand how big just a shift like that, like getting it to the flat side and shifting it back, those are big kind of scheme busters. Because it takes away the cap sometimes, it takes away the positional advantage of the defense sometimes. And throughout, I think that was when we were really cruising in this game, when we were really having success, that was a lot of it. And I think similarly, I think when you all didn't switch the field, you had problems. When you got to switch the field, it was way easier. JD actually, I meant to say this earlier, JD has like really good sneaky double teams that he puts on. He put one on earlier that was good, and poor Saul. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yacht had a good
really
game.
Good,
yeah, Saul. I was gonna say Saul's great. Saul's an amazing ultimate mind, and there's some things in this game like if you're just watching it to watch it, you're not gonna see, but just positionally, how he almost got a poach early on Ben on your first point. Just positionally, he plays great. And he played on Jack a lot of this game, which, that's probably a physical mismatch in most big spaces, but Jack had to be behind the disc more, and Saul did a really good job on him throughout this game whenever he got matched up on him.
You're exactly right. I mean, I see the same things. Very smart, very capable defender on multiple positions. I think he's really underrated in a lot of ways. Deserves more accolades. And, one of the guys that I wish I had, more time to hang out with and discuss an ultimate with and see what he sees on the field.
Yeah, he's a good. I mean, there's so many of these YCC kids that particularly from Carolina Friends, between the Liams and the Matt Gujahanis, like they're all really intelligent and really well-rounded kids. Henry also, and it's really awesome to watch them grow into like leaders and role models and coaches, and it's really fun to watch, especially as I kind of age out and have to take less responsibility, watching them take more and being better at it than I am. That's maybe not yet, but at some point, it's going to be awesome to watch.
Mike, your offense has been broken twice in the first 8 points of the game. not even 10 minutes in. Obviously, you're not panicking, but any thought about changing something? Or, I mean, it was just a couple innocent mistakes,
No.
Bobby's throw and Allen's drop that led to the breaks.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It was just simple mistakes. So, like, one was, you can say it's, partially schematic because Bobby threw into kind of soft poach, but then Allen dropped the disc and they were all both kind of short fields. So we're not really changing anything at this point. DA runs the offense, so I wasn't, I'm not privy to exactly what he was doing at every moment in this game, but we weren't uncomfortable pretty much until the last 2 minutes of this game, unfortunately. But yeah, like you see this throw, like this lateral kind of movement, and once again, it's like those big crossfield throws were paying dividends, especially on a big field.
Hey, so both you guys have been pretty darn fortunate. I mean, Brian, you show up to New York and you get Grant Lindsley and Jack Williams to go along with Jeff Babbitt and Ben Yott and Beau Kittredge and all the other stars. And Mike, one year you add Misha Freystadter and then you add Bobby Lay. And, I mean, it feels like both you guys have been able to add, whether you want to call them superstars or just really talented, experienced players onto your teams. And it feels like you've been able to integrate guys into your systems really quickly. Mike, is that pretty fair to say?
It's fair and not, it's a little bit of both, because there's people that you integrate. It's difficult because obviously they're very talented players, but it takes time to integrate into a system when a majority of the players have been playing in it for so long. So there's a little more, difficulty in trying to get them to match exactly with what you want in year one. It probably takes a year for them to really fit. Like with Misha, it took a little while. He had some physical stuff in the beginning of the time he played with us, but it took a little while to figure out where he fit. And I think until recently, we underutilized him a little bit. And even Bobby last year, I think he did a really good job just getting into the games and doing a great job. He was amazing this game, but he still has a lot of learning to do, defensively and exactly on what system we run, because they run, some of these experienced players are 7-8 years into their game and they've played one way a large majority of their time. So it takes a little while. I mean, it's awesome to have those players, but it does take some kind of meshing, and sometimes it takes a year. I think that's kind of a general feel I've gotten from the Gooses of the worlds, the Bretts of the worlds, the the Bobs.
Sure.
So
interesting.
I don't know how you feel about it, Brian. I'm guessing Jack was maybe a little bit easier, but
yeah, well, I think we have a simpler system. I think there's a lot of chatter, I'm sure, in the background of the way you guys run offense, kind of being, Jack would always say that it was like the future of the game. And I think there's a lot of merit to what you guys are doing. You guys switch the field really well, and it's something to really admire. I think our offense is simpler, but that also means I can maximize what players are and fit them in. I'm not fitting them into a pre-existing puzzle. It's kind of, I'm shaping the offense to suit their strengths as much as possible, so that way, we can keep things maybe a little bit simpler. There wasn't too much to it. I wouldn't say that we hit our perfect stride, and I think, Evan, you would probably agree. You followed us all season. We didn't play our best game until the end of the year, and we had people coming in and out. We had people coming in at various times in preseason, and I think that's one of the things that we're really hungry about, to resume is becoming a more excellent team that works better together, because I think there's a lot of room for us to grow. But we try to keep it simple, maximize to our players' talents. This was a year with really high expectations. There was no system coming into it, so it was a matter of what can we do that's going to give us the best chance to win this year.
Yeah, Jeff Babbitt said on the first edition of Live with Lep on Instagram last night that the 2020 Empire are much better than the 2019 Empire. So no pressure, Brian, on delivering.
Well, they don't they have to practice first? How's that work?
Oh, they work
outside a little bit.
Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, I don't know. you know what it feels like for you, Mike, but like the season for the Empire really felt like a roller coaster ride. It was just like there's insane high expectations, and there's this like we're winning every single game, but it doesn't feel like a lot, and so there's this like weird moment of like, all right, well, we still have more work to do almost after every single game, and I think that's partially good, but you have to give a lot of credit, I think, to the mental game of a lot of these players and having the confidence and even just the camaraderie within each other to gut it out, because we just weren't perfect, but we were good enough.
Yeah, I had I feel like our season went a little bit differently. We had a lot of road games to start, so I felt like we got almost complacent by the end of it because our difficulties were in the beginning of the season, meshing with new players, and then we started kind of rolling. And I felt it bit us a little bit in the playoff game because we didn't really have a challenge. We had a tight game with Tampa late in the season, but we didn't have a challenge late in the season. And then we had a challenge right out of the gates in the playoff game, and it kind of hurt us here. I thought Misha was going to tip that into the end zone, that 50-50 right there. Yeah. Yeah.
Who would you rather take, Misha or Jeff in a 50-50?
Man, I think Misha would get him just because Misha uses his body so well. I know Jeff jumps through the roof, and he's a big boy too, but I always see Jeff jumping into piles, and Misha does a really good job boxing everyone out and just being the tallest guy in the room. I mean, Yacht's no slouch too. Yacht's got, Yacht catches some, in this game especially, he catches a couple discs that probably shouldn't be caught, but yeah, I think I'd take Misha just because he can body too. I don't know about if he just they both jump straight up without being able to touch each other, but Misha's really good at just like getting in the way of people and being the biggest guy.
Having experienced it multiple times firsthand, Misha's really good. I'm still going to go with Jeff. I think, Yacht bails us out in this game a lot. Jeff.
Well, the one at the end, he almost
a grown man.
Yeah. It's close because they're both pretty incredible. I've seen Jeff do some insane end of game, whatever, just 50-50 catches in college and pro and club. It's pretty insane. He almost wins the game for you before you actually win in overtime. I don't know if you remember that.
He does, because he's mad about it. He's actually mad that he didn't get that one, and it was like, are you, it's in a pile. He's like, well, I should have had it.
And he was like, like an arm length above everyone, which is amazing. So we're playing a little bit of like a pressure junk here. I think we break out of it pretty fast because you go over the top again right away. And then I'm trying to think of what happens in this point.
We can get away with a lot of. We can just get away with a lot of stuff because of the throwers we have, and so there's a lot of like times here where we can get even better. But you have guys like said earlier that Justin Allen was throwing to Tim McAllister 35 yards deep. Well, when you have people that can put it even further, then you can kind of get away with that stuff.
Yeah. I really like Katz's little cheeky around backhand he throws there. He throws that to get the game to overtime, but man, that's a really nice throw for a little guy. He throws that really well.
Yeah, Katz, he's a magician. I mean, that was something that we learned in New York was just like. I'm sure, as people know, there's a big respect for his ability to do stuff on the defensive side, and he reads the game really well. But offensively, he's really proven himself, and that was, I think, one of the biggest surprises throughout the season was how much we relied on him to move the disc. As Ben would tell me, it's like, oh, I still want to play defense. I can play every point. And so, no, he got pretty much relegated to play unless we needed him, him to cross over. So. But he has a really good sixth sense for the game.
Yeah, I enjoy watching him play. I love players. I mean, being a small player, I love small players that maximize their ability. So a guy like Katz is always super fun to watch be efficient with, in a big, basically a big person's game. Having somebody that's like 5'7" be, as strong as a player as he is always impressive.
Misha
That was a
hucking
little
to
question-
Allen. I imagine you'd rather
Yeah, a
have
little
it the other way.
questionable. Little questionable there. Misha, the choice is okay. He just throws it short. If he throws it flatter and a little bit straighter, he'd be okay. But he makes Allen make a play there, and Allen makes a good play in his defense. Like, he threw it to a place Allen could make a play, and he did. It's so funny.
Allen
though.
could play
That's
so big.
Yeah, Allen's talented. Yeah, it's funny that Misha throws around that mark like it's not even there, even though it's the break side. It's the break side on a sideline, and he throws it like there's no mark.
Yeah, there's not much you can do with even though the throw is you might feel like it's a little dicey. It comes in fast. Defender has to be making a great play in order to get a D on that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, by the way, I don't know if we're gonna get Misha Freystadter's mother to weigh in, but Jeff Babbitt's mother has weighed in and said there's no 50-50 with Jeff. They're 99.9 Jeffs.
I have a funny story about Jeff Babbitt's mother. She yelled at us, I think when I was at UNC, because we were being like too physical with Jeff back in like 2014 or something like that. We were walking up the sidelines and she was yelling. She was yelling at us. She was like, "You're fouling too hard on my son."
Got to appreciate the passion.
I don't know if that Jeff needs any protection.
No, he doesn't. That's the funniest part about it. He was the biggest guy in the field.
Yeah, I think
so
looking at the questions kind of coming in.
I'm just going to throw this spoiler out there. The first Flyers break of the game is coming up. Obviously, New York has 2 breaks thus far. Raleigh has none, and that's about to change on this next point. I don't really remember how it happens, but we'll see.
I think we.
Yeah, I was just looking at.
Maybe. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just looking at the chat. I just was seeing some questions kind of coming in, and I think Tim DeBiles listening. He said he assumed I stole everything I used from the Madison Radicals in the championship game, and I think Tim, we share some principles, and there was some stuff I stole from you, but it came a little later, and we definitely utilized it to success in later in the season. So don't worry about it. I definitely steal from everybody that I can do. So you're no exception.
I thought, speaking of Tim, I thought the Radicals' game plan against Dallas in the final that they won was pretty incredible. That was probably one of the better game plans I've ever seen, where they just kind of played their zone because they knew Dallas was a little light on handlers or throwing prowess, and there were some points in there. And near the end of the game, if you get a chance to watch that, it's pretty incredible how many throws Dallas has to throw at points to score. And having played them, I know that's incredibly difficult to do. So it was pretty cool watching that schematically. So even though we beat Tim's team by like 10 points, it was still an impressive win.
Yeah, but who's keeping score?
Right, no one's keeping score though.
I like how you mentioned that at the end there, because we can't just praise Tim.
No.
My team beat his by a lot of points, but he's great.
Yeah, meanwhile,
that was impressive though.
Yeah, we were just winning every game by 2 or 3. So it was a pretty interesting year from that perspective. We'll probably talk more about that, and this game was no exception.
Yeah.
I think already on that last possession, I was starting to try to double team because we weren't getting you guys into tough situations, and we had definitely kind of execution wise in our defensive scheme hadn't done a good job of limiting your guys. And I think we're going to lose Marquez soon, so then we're in a pretty thin situation. No Grant, no Elliott Lee, so we've got to kind of value Ben Katz to O. And so I don't think we have Josue and we have Matt Lamar. Then we have a bunch of other people who have been in and out throughout the season, kind of playing the defensive roles. And I think you guys were just too ready to be patient in this game for us to really have a better get. We would need to have just a little bit more complexity, I think, on defense.
Yeah, I mean that's
incredible.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. D-Rich has been on a couple of those, on the other bad end of a couple of those, and he's gotten better and better at them every year. But it's unfortunate because he plays really good positional D there, and he bodies Ben up, and like the only thing he could have done a little more is bumped him a little more before Ben got to jump because he got a free release. But man, D-Rich has gotten way better over the last he's really only played AUDL and club the last like 4 or 5 years, but man, like his trajectory has been pretty incredible, and it's unfortunate he's had the wrong end of those probably like 10 times in his career, but it's awesome to see him get a little bit better at him every year.
And
he's
Bryan,
a great defender. He does a good job.
Really good coaching by you to teach Yacht how to go up over you guys.
Yeah, well, I think we gave we can miss pretty well with the throw. So Yacht outfords us as that. So that's nice to have. It's nice when you have Jeff Babbitt and you have Ben Yacht and you have Beau. You have a lot of people that can go up and get the disc.
Yeah, here's a little bit of Bobby being Bobby, just kind of driving the bus here. Something that's also sneaky about Bobby is the way he gets upfield. It's awesome that he's constantly, not a lot of handlers do that. Not a lot of handlers like run up the field and return. I really like that aspect, and something that was really nice seeing out of Bobby like right away, that he wasn't afraid to peel upfield.
Was this a second game with you guys this year?
I don't remember. I think so. I think it was the second. I think we had like maybe one road game with him, but it was fair. He was fairly new because I sat him. He was injured for a big part of the beginning of our season, so I sat him for a while before he actually made a debut. But he was practicing with us. He just didn't play
game
for
number
a while.
3. Played Atlanta and Dallas, and
Okay.
New York was number 3.
And Noah wasn't here, so he had to take a bigger chunk of the throwing responsibility. He did a good job. Kieran Allen did a really good job this game, all supporting too. We were definitely handler light, but I mean, just because Noah is such a big piece of that when we need him. But Kieran and Bobby did a really good job driving.
Is Noah the most underrated player in the world?
I think at this point he's properly rated because he was so underrated or people said he was so underrated that he's properly rated now. But man, I still feel like people don't really appreciate everything he brings to the table because he really does so much for our team.
He doesn't do anything wrong, and he's a great leader. Having got to work with him at USA Worlds tryouts, it was just evident like that his voice doesn't quit and that he really can get the best out of everybody else. Oof.
Yeah. He's the definition of leader. He's the definition of a leader. He just does, he leads by example. He leads with his voice, and it's like there's very rare times where he's thinking about self when he's doing things. It's often about team, which is exactly what you need. Yeah, we just give it right back to you here. That was a sad one.
I mean, this is a game that had so few sloppy turnovers, and they just kind of come in bunches, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more that magnifies them because there's only like 6 of them, and they're all in parts of the game, 6 or 7 of them. But yeah, it's
question
funny,
to throw out folks in the chat, and you guys can opine as well. If Noah is properly rated, as Harper drops another ridiculous hammer. Wow,
it's so good.
Who is the most underrated player in the AUDL? And I'm sure everyone will answer that rationally in the chat.
I mean, I don't know about the whole AUDL, but Mike, who's the most underrated player on the Empire? And I'll give you who's the most underrated player on the Flyers.
So I would probably say Katz, but I think Katz has enough of a name for himself. I'll tell you the most player in this game is probably Connor Klein. He sneakily scores like 7 goals in this game or something. But I think really in this game, like he was a pretty big piece when you needed him to come up, and he was a clutch piece when you needed him the most. I don't know about the entirety of your season, but I've watched Connor since college, and I've always thought he's been super underrated. He's like flown under the radar, and the guy's just immensely talented.
He's got such a quick first step. It really makes him a really dangerous player. And this is a blown switch right here. One of the things where it's just like Ryan Holmes is a really good sound man-to-man defender, but I think here we just don't have the communication, if I remember correctly. And this is, I think, Ryan's first or second game of the season. He's a guy with like a lot of experience before he had some injuries. But yeah, I've already talked about Saul Yannick, I think, as being the most underrated player on Raleigh, and just in general, I don't think he gets talked about enough. Really like players that can guard multiple positions, and because it allows you to switch and do a lot of other things, you don't need to worry about them.
Yeah, I mean, given he made the World's team, though, I think he's probably gonna quickly be rated properly.
Another underrated guy that made the World team, former Flyer, pointed out by Tim DeBile of all people, Nate Goff.
Nate Goff made the World's team too.
Yeah, but before he made the World team, he was probably pretty underrated. I know you've thought
he came to us. Yes, when he played with us, the year he played with us, I think he was by far the biggest surprise when he came out when he started playing games with us. We were really impressed. I'm really glad he's thriving in Chicago. I wish he still lived in South Carolina and could play in North Carolina, but I'm glad he's moving on with his life, getting his schooling together.
Maybe he'll be back.
I hope so. Maybe he'll go to New York. Who knows?
Thing to do these days.
Yeah. It's great weather out here. The parks are wide open right now. There's nobody in the streets. It's low pollution. Yeah. I think Connor, it's somebody else, Walker, actually, Matthews, asked about thoughts on Connor Klein, and I think he was just so, in terms of like the roller coaster for the season, there's just so many cool stories of players having, I think, like, not necessarily redemption moments, but Connor hadn't had his I don't think he would tell you his best year the year prior, and he came in with a really great mindset and became a really great, was a really great teammate for us. And then just when called upon was ready and just naturally fit in. He really stretched the field in a way and provided kind of the action off a yacht that we needed. And that's something that, I think if I was going to give myself credit, I would have done it at the start of the season. But there's it's kind of like how the Patriots sometimes get credit for drafting Tom Brady, but then you realize they drafted him in the 6th round. Like Connor just took advantage of his moment and never let go, and you need players like that.
It was 20 years ago today, Brian. Let's speak of it with some respect.
Wow.
Happy 68th birthday, Phil Belichick.
Wow.
Go Pat.
Oh, my gosh.
That was intentional,
right,
Evan.
So this is just a set play. I think that was just a quick ISO to Henry, and I think you're running some kind of a little junkiness here, Brian, if I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, in general, this is one of the things I think
matchup.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Mike. There's definitely times where you give thought to like the set plays of another team and really understanding them so you can take advantage of them. But there's, especially for a game when you're like in the middle of the regular season, there's so many useful tools that you can use to bust up a pull play. I don't know if you spend that much time analyzing the other team, and going for, specific things, or if you could, because I get the sense that you're more about your own toolbox than you are about the other teams.
I definitely look at that, when we're scouting other teams, at the ways they try to dispossess you. And I started coaching offense for club this year, DA, and I switched roles, and that was definitely part of my emphasis, was how we best maximize our offensive ability. And we definitely ran, it was really team dependent. And one of my philosophies that might be a little bit different than David's is I'm more of like if it's not broke, don't fix it. So there's times when I'll run the same play like 3 or 4 times if a team doesn't figure it out. And, obviously you have very different audibles out of those plays, but, I definitely analyze both sides as much as I can. And definitely when we know we're playing a team, like make sure we're prepared for what's going to get thrown at us. And, you obviously have people that are going to throw something new at you in any given game, but hopefully your systems can take care of that if you don't have time to scheme for it. But I think that's super important for a coach to understand not only yourself but the opponent as much as you can, how your schemes fit against their schemes.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's a certain amount of information a player can take coming into game day, and that often simpler, especially New York has the advantage of having a lot of experienced athletes. There was something I kind of learned in my years of coaching against Toronto was, they had these really big set plays, and I think they were just analyzed recently on one of the AUDL like kind of moments. They've been doing that for years and taking advantage of big spaces. And I found that having the tools that are based in our vernacular and what we do well allow us to be more effective than to be sitting there the night before a game and putting up film and dissecting every set play. Because I think there's sometimes there's like less is more type of game planning, and when you have the right types of players, there are times when you need to really dive into it. But I like to build out to things that we do well and use that to have enough counters to combat what the other team is doing, and then tweak it as needed.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely over prepared when I was like probably in like the 2010, 2013 UNC days, maybe even up until like 15. But yeah, I agree. I think if you can't cram too much into someone's brain on game day. And I even did that in the beginning of the Flyers. Partially, I did that in the early years of the Flyers because there's just not enough time to practice and be together. It's not like a college team that gets to practice 3 or 4 days a week. So it's like we took some of those game days to do film sessions prior to the warm-up because you just need that extra time with the team. But, I definitely over-prepared a little bit in going into like 13, 14, 15, which, paid some dividends, but I think we do a little less of that now because we trust ourselves more. We're also our system is a little bit, players have been in it a little bit longer, so we don't have to continue to emphasize we know what we need to do, and we can throw a couple things on a game day, but you don't want to overload people. I think cramming too much stuff in their minds interferes with their ability to play.
Mike, since 2015, you've also had like 12 assistant coaches for UNC, so you can only do so much yourself.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I will go to a practice occasionally, but or we'll scrimmage with the Flyers. But yeah, David's taken over there. Matt, Gujahanis, and JD, they're coaching now, and obviously Nutt was there before. So it's been cool to see all these younger players start to become coaches and age out, and just take the reins, continue the winning ways. I had to take a time out there because Tristan got double teamed by the 2 biggest people on the field. If that's what you're wondering there, Tristan's a perfectly capable handler. Tristan's a perfectly capable handler of getting out of that, but I also analyzed the fact that JD was his dump, and those two together are small targets, and it's a little harder for Tristan to hit JD in that situation, especially when he's being double teamed. So I just didn't want to take risk there. That was the quick timeout.
Brian, were you irked at all by that decision to throw over the top of the goal line there?
No, it was just a little rushed. Cats is open. It's one of those things where if you throw it a half a second later, it's going to be an easy completion.
Yeah.
So, those are the things Jack? Where it's like yeah, that was Jack. There were moments where, it's one of those things where like a scuba is so valuable, especially because the double team rule. you're going to have those mistakes from time to time. I tend to try to forget about them and just move on. Sometimes it could be an evidence of being too nervous, but I think this is just, you're in the middle of the game, and this is tough to stay executing flawlessly through the entirety. Like this is two really great offenses. They hold a lot. Like, I think if I've looked at the score sheet of this game before, and it's just in the second half, it's hold for a really long time. It's hard to do that. What is it like? I don't know. How many straight holds is this in this game, Evan?
There, I'll tell you in a second. I got my my play-by-play that I wrote that game in front of me here.
I love that double team Beau just put on. The sneaky from behind. You turn around and look at the dump, and there's just somebody right in your face. It's like one of my favorite double teams. This is a nice throw, a nice play.
And Marquez injures himself on this. I think he had, I can't remember the exact injury, but it's just off the jump. So he's gone for the rest of this. And, he gets beat here, but Marquez has this that type of versatile skill set and athleticism to get a block or to be agile on the mark. And this is a good throw.
You think was it a pride injury, or do you think it was a real injury?
No, he was out for like 6 weeks after this. I'm
just kidding. I mean, I thought it was a cramp, but it looks like he really messed himself up after post game. I thought it was a cramp in the moment, but he grabs his knee, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah, those are the tough ones. Justin has a scary injury in this game, right?
It looks terrible. Yeah. Well, he wasn't. I mean, we thought he tore multiple ligaments in his knee, and it turned out he didn't. I think he just strained most of them, but he was out for pretty much. He was probably going to try to make the Final Four, but it would have been doubtful, I think. I don't know if I would have been comfortable playing him for the Final Four. Didn't have to worry about that, though.
So, Mike, I want to ask you this, and Brian, you can chime in too, because I feel like you guys have been coaching for long enough that, I mean, you guys have this kind of rational or irrational, from my perspective, like disconnect. Like, you're able to handle the great moments and the depressing moments so calmly, rationally, and relive them. Like, I was talking about this with Brian on the phone the other day. Like, I don't know how you guys do that. As a fan, like, I can't rewatch the bad games of my team. It just hurts. And, like, you've had great moments, you've had bad moments. In part, I envy it. But I'm curious, Mike, like, is it just you're so scientific and clinical with the way you look at it that, I mean, how do you explain it?
I could explain it like this. I feel the exact same way when I'm a fan of a team. Like, when I'm watching, like, the Bears play, I'm whipping stuff all over the room when they screw up or when they fail. And, I was I was actually with players for the game that the double doink game where our kicker hit the upright and the crossbar to lose the game against Philly. I was with players, and I was just like, you could just see the anguish on my face. But, like, I think it's just separate when you're coaching. It's like I've been doing it a really, really long time, and we've had a lot of success in different levels, and obviously in the top levels we've come up short. But I look at it as like a big canvas, and take away, when I look at the canvas, there's been incremental growth, and that's what I need to see every year. And that means that I'm doing my job. Like, even though the result isn't there, we haven't taken the next step, but every time we get to these games, I feel like we play a little bit better. I think the Dallas game, was the only one that I feel like we haven't gotten better in that, like, little progression we've had. And I also think you've just got to be in the moment, right? Like, when we won the national championship in 2015, it was just like, it wasn't necessarily relief. Everyone was looking around, and it was almost like, is this it? Like, I think one of those things is you're just going to always feel worse when you lose than you do when you win. And you also have to just, once it's over, and you just get back to work. And you have to learn from every season you coach. That's kind of how I treat it. I treat it as these individual moments, and once it's done, you learn from it and you get back on the horse and go at it again. And if you continue to fail, like, then you should probably reassess entirely. But I don't think we're there yet. Like, I feel like we continue to grow and get better. Like, if you look at this team versus a 2015 or 16 team, I can definitively say this team is better. And that's important. I mean, everyone's better, but for our level, we're better too. So I think that's really important to me as a coach.
Good stuff. I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that.
I think I see, I feel a lot of similarities, and the one thing that's really interesting is because we've been fortunate to, and also like, made our own luck to win championships. And I'm not implying that you're lucky or that necessarily we're lucky, but it's been really a fun ride. And once I think you win, you have this confidence. And even if it's not like winning a championship, like once you start to figure out, there's these moments of when you figure out like, hey, getting upset about the problem isn't going to solve it. Like this game on some level, it's very simple, but it's really hard. It's throws and catches, making sure people are on the same page. And, there's always a way to make that better and to get people to play better. And so that kind of requires you to like suspend yourself and be out of like in some ways, like stay out of all of the fandom and all of the, prognostication that goes on by guys like Evan. And just be what you focus on your work. The other thing that was really interesting that you talked about, like, is this it about winning? Like, it is interesting because, like, winning, like, I think me and Yacht both talked about it because Yacht's won at multiple levels, and after we won, like, there's a joy in like the connectedness with your team, but there's also like this: is this it? Like, I'm ready to go play another opponent, because you have to get, in order to win. Usually you have to be such in the moment that you have to be so geared up in that by the time the final like buzzer rings, you're like, oh, where's our next game? We're ready for that. We've got to go prepare some more. So like winning has this like, it's not as like this life changing as, in some ways, but it sure beats losing. So, I'll say that.
I'll agree with that. But yeah, I think that we work with a sports psychologist, and that's a big goal, is that you need to get yourself in any of these big moments. It's fine to feel nervous, and you're going to feel the feelings you feel. And there are, especially if you've had some history, but the big thing is to just center yourself and find tools, little tools like breathing exercises or mantras or any little thing that you can lean on to get you back in the moment and get you back on focused on that point, regardless of what's happening in the external environment. That's super important, and that's been a big help. Even for me, like, there are moments when things are definitely not gonna go your way, and the expectations are, you're gonna be failing expectations, and you have to center yourself and find ways to do that. And little tools like that are huge. And something you touched on too, Brian, about the team aspect, like that's also part of it. Something that I've learned over the years is, I was really hell-bent on winning in the beginning of my coaching career, and I think we went through a lot of miserable team experiences. Not maybe miserable, but not as good as they can be. And now I'm really like hell-bent on making sure these experiences, like our team has as much love in the room as possible to feel the success, or to have each other's backs when things are going bad. And I think that's a really important aspect of team, to just walk away from the experience and feel like you did as much as you could for yourself and for your team. That's a big part of it for me.
Totally agree. I think that's always kind of the goal. It helps you push you towards perfection. If you do it well, you'll get to excellence at some point.
This is a good little you're playing kind of soft again and make throw a ton of throws there. I don't remember if we turned it or not. I think we score, but it's really good red zone defense. We throw probably like 12 or 13 throws in this before Bobby does his little Bobby thing. Henry runs right in front of Fairfax. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the hard thing about these night games is that the wind really dies down, and all of a sudden now, like, you got to be your risk taking threshold on defense has to go way up, and so there's these. It's like one of those things where you can't, like, I can't against you guys. I can't run this like, oh, we're just gonna not bend. We're not gonna break. We'll let you just take yardage. You guys, you have Bobby. You're hitting the over the tops, and you have. I think Jacob has a really good throwing game this game, and just you guys were on. And so by the end of it, like, we had to ramp up the pressure, and this is something I kind of regret. I'd wish I had done it sooner. And kind of looking back at this game is you guys were just comfortable and in rhythm through a lot of it. And so we're starting to do little things. Like, we're starting to make some adjustments here, but they're just minor. And they're getting, like, that one, like you said, had good red zone defense. And that's something that we build on later on in the season really well. Like, this game was really instrumental in that, because that's something on the fly that's happening. And so, like, that was something we had to make. We had to make a decision of, like, all right, well, we've tried these things. They're not working. Let's try something new. And it's early enough in the game to where, like, I could tell you guys were comfortable. But we just didn't we just didn't do enough changes, I think, to have a great defensive game. And you guys were just ready for us.
Yeah, this is a skyball. I think one of the things that's hard, and I know you said you all came in early, but I think it's super hard to go on the road in the AUDL and play a matchup type game right out of the gates. Like, we rarely ever do that because your legs are shot usually. And, a lot of our trips, I don't know how yours are. I don't know if you have a lot of overnighters and you get to rest the day before the game, but a lot of our games, like when we play Atlanta, we got to drive 5.5, 6 hours before we actually get to play. And it's really hard to get out of a van, warm up, and play hard defense. So a lot of those games, we kind of ease into it. We don't really play tough, like, matchup D out of the gates, unless we know we have a strategic advantage somewhere. But it's just like another intricacy of the AUDL that probably you don't really notice until you're coaching it, that people are pretty shot after flying or driving for 6-7 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge. I think we didn't have too many road trips that were long. A lot of our road trips were to Philly or DC, so there was an ability to really come out. But we did start slow in those games. There was that DC game where we were on the road and we went down 6 goals, and Connor Klein had to help us back into the game. So, I think we were really excited for this game because, Evan, I think these are the best uniforms we've got. Like the pinstripes, the guys went out and got the headbands. Ben Yacht's doing tennis celebrations as if we're playing at U.S. Open. So, I'm a big fan of this look. I don't know what you think.
I loved it. I was like, man, I wish we had some headbands.
These are both good jerseys. They look good going against each other too. It's a great venue. It's a beautiful night.
Awesome venue.
Is this the field site where that next gen game happened and the sprinklers came on in the middle of it?
Yep. This is run by the town of Cary, so there's definitely some headaches involved with getting this field and getting it prepared the right way. But I think it's probably one of the best ultimate venues there are. Between the size of the size of the crowd, just the amount of people they can seat, the vantage points, the field. Apparently, all the players love the field, which, I mean, the grass looks really nice, or is very nice. It's really well maintained, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of this venue. This is where the main soccer side is where the soccer teams play, the men's and women's soccer teams for NCFC. But it's a really nice venue.
Like, in 2008 and 2009, I broadcast the ACC men's and women's soccer tournament at this venue. So
yeah,
blast past.
Yeah, it's sweet. One day we'll be in that big stadium.
Sooner than you think.
I know. I'm excited about that. Yeah, Henry was a little hobbled this game also, which you can't really tell because he scores a ton of goals, but he had a little bit of a heel injury this game, if you can't tell by his gallop over there.
Yeah, he really impressed me. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like there's a lot of young players who are just fast and tall, and you can take that away from them and see what they do next. And in this game, he still gets open. And, your offense, I think, has a lot to do with that. And his ability to understand that he's getting backed has a lot to do with that, too. Coming in, getting the dump, and then winning the cuts up line. That was something where I think I noticed in this game he really added to it, where it was like, oh, in the end zone, I can still really be this huge threat. You're going to back me because you're scared, and then I'm going to go and make it a give and go.
Yeah, he overcuts on a couple of those. Like, he cuts people off, but when you get open all the time doing it, I'm not overly surprised. I like Connor giving Ross Ward, an ex-Empire player, a little business there after he scored on him. But yeah, Henry's really good at that. He just has to mind other people's spaces sometimes because he does cut people off.
So important when they play with confidence.
D-Rich almost makes a nice play. Yeah, Yacht has so many almost Ds on him in this game. I think he has like 4. And it sucks because he catches every one of them. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
Henry Fisher obviously had an awesome year. What is his ceiling? I mean, obviously, like, Misha and Yacht are big, skinny guys who are maybe a little bit more well-rounded right now, more experienced than Henry. How does he take that next step? Because I feel like he's a step away from being in the conversation for one of the most dominant guys in the league.
I think he's already taken steps to do that. I mean, I think he was already, his this season he was incredible. I think he needs to add some more consistency to his throwing toolbox, and I think he coming out of college, there were some catching deficiencies he had, but he worked on those this season, and you actually see it in this game. He comes up with a couple really clutch catches where there's D's right on him. Unfortunately, that one on Beau, that was the only one he really missed, but at the end. But there were a couple that Yacht and Beau almost got to, but it was because he's worked really hard on that aspect of his game, and he's gotten better at it. But I think once he adds, a little more consistency to his throwing toolbox, I think he's going to be right there with everybody that, the top couple players in the league. Just because he has that physical ability and the desire to get better, so he just has to execute on it, and he'll be there.
But especially in a guy like Bobby who can just put it, gotta be closer.
Yeah, Kieran. So Kieran, that's the second time he snuck through from the handler set and cut deep on you all, and you didn't switch on him. He did that twice this game, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, we didn't have a good, that was one of the things, like chemistry-wise, defensively, we didn't have enough work on those switches. It was something that, we had to work out our offensive kinks.
Here comes Allen's highlight play. That was
a really
awesome
nice block.
Yeah, he read it really well from the back. If you watch, he's reading it the whole time. I don't know if we can rewind it just to show people, but the back of the stack, he's playing back of the stack D there. And here, I guess, we'll see it here. But watch Allen, how he's positioned in the back of the stack, and he's not necessarily completely behind Connor, or I think it's throws to Connor, but whoever your receiver is, like, watch at the right end of the screen, you see your cutter go, and Allen's peeled already. He's a step deep, and then they put it towards his side, and he gets to make a play. So that's good stuff. That's like one of those where he wasn't completely in the right position, but because the throw wasn't perfect, he got the D there, and he made a sweet play.
Heads-up defense by Raleigh.
Yeah, I mean, Allen's really good. I mean, that's a really nice heads-up poaching play. He's also really good defensively in terms of positioning. He does a really good job of playing big. You have a lot of guys who can play bigger than they are, and they know how to have that confidence when they go up for a disc.
Yeah, Allen's worked really hard since he's moved here. He's been an awesome person to have. I think Misha and him are 1 and 1A of people I've always wanted to have coach, and neither disappointed. They've been awesome. I took a little time out there once again because I think that was Connor Russell's first game playing with us, and JD was his dump again, and I felt like Connor was a little more pressured than needed to be, and I definitely didn't want to have an easy dump turnover there, so I just took a time out, make sure the O punches this one in.
Yeah,
Brian, to answer the question you asked in the first half, I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but it's been 6 straight holds to start the second half. and actually 7. And a couple breaks are coming up, and then there's going to be a long run of holds, 12 or 13 in a row until the very end.
And sometimes when you hit the back end of the Frisbee, it will
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good offensive showcase, and smart athletes using big spaces like Mike's talked about. And when you have the athletes to do it, it can be really hard to stop and really hard to slow down. And this is the type of game, where you really got to take advantage of this. And I think using the timeout call here is something I would have done. It's always funny because, you call that timeout, and sometimes I get defensive players that are going, "Oh, I thought you were going to call it sooner." But most of the time, defensive players are going, "Really? You're going to stop us now?" And like, I don't know. Defensive players always want the rock, so sometimes you got to let them run.
Yeah.
A lot of times we're not going to.
Yeah, there's one play early in the game I was going to call timeout, but there was an injury, and I think Eric got put in, and I let the D run that one. But I think it just depends on personnel. And if I see him in a sticky situation, because I know that's exactly what's going to happen out of the timeout. You're gonna probably apply a double team. You're going to do some pressure thing. But I know the O is more than capable of breaking out of it. But when you watch a D reset almost fail when the two players are wide open, it's one of those things where you're like, why am I taking this risk at all? Like, let's put the people that have the most offensive talent on the field and do it. And my D gets after me all the time about it. But I'm playing statistics, I'm playing percentages, and I want him to score some goals, but I also want to win the game. So if we're winning by 10, I'll let him play, but generally I'm just calling a timeout and getting the O out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that strategy, and it's something that we used a lot, and I think that came down in the championship game. We had to really convert on a couple of key possessions in order to take advantage. And here you guys you're really well equipped to, like you said, to deal with a double team. I think, we tried to get Terrence into some situations where he would have to throw something, and he does a really good job of working out of it. He notices it right away, and that's something he's evolved to do. And clearly that's something that, he's not just a deep threat. He's added more dimensions to his game year after year.
I think so many people underestimate Terrence's throwing ability. I think people think Terrence is still 17 years old in the league or something. They don't realize he's 24 and he's been playing Ultimate for 7 years at a high level. And it's so funny because I love when teams do it, because I'm like, all right, you just double, you gave Terrence an option. You may have pressured him, but you released one of our other O players, and Terrence is definitely going to get out of this situation. He does it every time. It's pretty funny. I don't know why they think Terrence can't throw still, because he's a pretty capable thrower.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's hard in this game is that there's no gimmies. I mean, Fairfax has a good throwing game. He has a really nice deep throw later, and we get lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to show this again, Justin's injury. This was such a freak injury, and this was another play where Yacht just comes out of nowhere and makes a play. Yacht picks up some trash that I think Dietrich was close by him, but he wasn't close. Yacht lays out and gets the rebound. But yeah, if you watch, I don't know if they show the replay or not, but his knee buckles pretty good here.
Yeah, Justin's I've seen enough of those. I don't need to see it anymore.
Players realized that this was going to soar over. It was intended for Meeser and caught by Yacht. Allen with a landing there. Ooh, just an awkward landing. No contact with the opponent. Hopefully Justin's all right. Justin got married a couple weeks ago to his new wife, Cassandra. That didn't look good. The Flyers want to see right now.
Yeah, it's usually those non-contact ones that sometimes end up being a more serious injury. I hope he's okay.
Back to business. New York a few yards away from potentially the game-tying score. This one floating. But New York has some tall players, and it's off Yacht's hand in the end zone.
I think that's the one Yacht missed in the entire game. That's the only one.
Unable to come down with a one-handed grab.
I would say Ben Yacht should have.
You kind of take it for granted. I think that's one of the things that's I wish sometimes I spread more love onto the players, but Yacht and Jeff come down with so many 50-50s that you kind of you kind of expect him. but it really is something that is a skill that he's really honed over the the last few years.
So this is a situation that I left the D on because we had so many capable handlers. We had Saul, we had Tristan and JD out here, so I just let them play for a while.
Is there
Especially
anything
when
to
you have,
wanting to save your last time out?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was just kind of playing percentages here. I think we were late in the third quarter, and I was just thinking, like, we're going to need one of those late. And I think I didn't use it. I don't think we used it. So usually I should just take them and deal with it.
I loved the patience from Raleigh on that last point. They had a few times in the first half where they weren't able to showcase consistent offensive play on the turn. But Raleigh, great offensive point after Richardson putting pressure on Yacht. Just smooth offense. Nice.
Yeah, Tristan rips this one cross-field, and Chuck, who also was a DC player that started playing with us last year. He played at, I think, Montreal too, but he was a real fun surprise at tryouts, and he played in a ton of our games. Super consistent, great teammate. Like, he was awesome, an awesome ad for us.
They're not done yet. We know that.
Cantone's
Players
his
are
last
the
name.
most underrated ones.
Really well in some fourth quarters when they
What'd you say?
needed to.
Those types of players, they're just it's one of those things where they don't get a lot of love, but like everybody on the team kind of understands it. It's like pretty easy, and you can have the affinity for those guys because they do their job, they do it well. You know you're getting the best out of them.
Yeah, and that's the
And
other
here,
thing.
yeah.
Like we were talking. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I put Beau and Jeff here on the O-line, and this was something that we had to do when we got broken a couple times, and if we were tired at all, just to Beau has this in this game, and I think you talk about it afterwards and then quoted about it. Like, he just has this really good sense of, like, he's not afraid of the moment ever, and so he's a really good insert. But our offense isn't textbook, but I know that it's going to be conservative and going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by Beau. Like, I often talk about small players maximizing their ability, but man, I don't know anybody that maximizes their ability more than him, or has in his entire career. Like, he just does everything right, and he always seems to be in the right spot. He always seems to pick his moments well. He picked his moment well in this game, and even in the one that he missed on Henry, he almost got to it. Like, that's incredible for being a player that's kind of supposed to be aging out. Like, seeing that is really impressive. It's like a testament to his training and his intelligence and all those intangibles. He's a really good player.
Yeah, he really is calculating. I mean, he just you see it in practice too, and he'll like get a block or a hand block or something, and then be talking a little trash afterwards, and you can tell that he's really thought about everything and noticed these patterns over the course of the game. And it's somebody where it's like you don't really have to coach him that much at all. Like, he's seen everything, so he kind of fills in the gaps, and it's just like, yep, I got this, and kind of does a smart move almost all the time.
Yep, totally agree. Also, something I haven't mentioned yet. I thought our fans in this game were pretty incredible. It was probably our best crowd of the year, beside the playoff game. But this atmosphere was a little bit better because everyone was kind of packed in. So I really appreciate our fan base, and it really sucks we haven't won for them. But man, they're great. They're really great follow. They tailgate, and it's really awesome to have this kind of community and this kind of support. But yeah, I can hear him in the background, and this one's pretty funny because the New York Barbara and the New York owners are kind of jumping in front of the camera a little bit. But I had so many people come up to me and be like, "Why were they in our crowd? This is our crowd." I was like, "You can do that. Like, the opposing team can be in our crowd. It's okay." It was pretty funny.
One of the things
Paul
that
Stevens, Brian, sorry, Paul Stevens, the Empire owner, I mean, has a tendency to roam during games. I remember he was near our broadcast vantage point during a timeout when, in the second half, Raleigh was up by 2. It might have been at the end of the third quarter. we kind of made eye contact, and he just was like stressed out and shaking his head. And I may have said something to you, a loss would be the worst thing. And he's like, I guess, but I think like, I mean, Mike, you're an owner too, but like you're walked into the game as a coach. I mean, he's watching the game like he's a Bear, like you're watching the Bears, and it's a very different experience for those other owners.
I've watched some local games in the stands. Like I watched a women's club game, that the Eurostars game, and it's just like I just tear my hair out because I just like I become a fan. I become a fan again. It's like I want everyone to do the right thing and like be successful. And man, it's just like it's crazy. It's like I feel bad for our fans because we haven't won for them. And like I'm usually engaged in the game, so I catch like some of it. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's just like it's a weird switch. You're like detached from it when you're in it.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the all the work that the Stevens owners do for the Empire, because I think one of my favorite moments is and maybe Mike, you can take some notes here, is like you got to get a drum line, because we have a drum line for the Empire, and
we tried.
Makes
we
everything
actually
better.
tried this year. Yeah.
The Jabron Meeser gets some D's against Toronto in the East Division Championship game, and then we immediately score and the drum line's playing, and that atmosphere, I've never been in a better one. Like it's just so much fun.
That's awesome. We tried this year. We tried to get a drum line and a choir, and we couldn't. It all fell through in the last minute. But I think I've heard really good things. Like our owners meeting, we always talk about like ways to add value to your fans, and that was one of them that people brought up a couple times. I think Ellie brought it up.
And Mike, there's certainly a lot of privileged conversation that happens on owners' conference calls. But what has the conversation been like recently? And then we'll get back to this fourth quarter.
I mean, I just think most owners want this thing to start. We want to get going, and I think there's a lot of positivity around it and hopefulness, and we're just we have a plan in place, and we hope that the timeline matches up, and we hope that we can have some semblance of a season. And I think everyone's pretty hopeful, and I am, and we'll see what happens. I think it's just there's a lot of industries and businesses are going through this process, and we're trying to be as positive about it as possible. And we really hope we can have a season and some semblance of a season. And, I think people want some sports back, and they want some normalcy, and we hope we can bring it to them this season. There's Yacht making another play for Ross.
How about that D-Rich D earlier in the point?
That was awesome. That's a great play. Another like really fantastic play. He cut off the angle and got the D. Yacht threw it right up the line, and I think he pretty much had him dead to rights, and D-Rich cut off the angle, which got him the D.
We should also shout out the referee that made the athletic move to get out of the way.
Yeah, that's a local player. His name's Bryan Jones.
That's right, Brandon.
He's been a long-time ref.
NC State.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a nice hold from New York, a very important hold too.
Yeah, that one was unfortunate. Oh,
go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just going to say that was an unfortunate play because I think Ross had some steps on that turnover, and we just hung it on the D. Maybe you'll see it, but there's D-Rich cutting it off, Brandon getting out of the way. Showing some athleticism there, Brandon, getting down. But then you'll see right here, just because it hung a little bit, Yacht got to make the play, gave him a little finger there.
This is a rare Ben Katz huck. He does not usually throw these.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think D-Rich got beat there because he was tired from the last one, from his layout.
Klein had 9 goals against DC a few weeks back.
So, Brian, you know that you need to break at least once to tie this thing. I mean, how are you feeling down by 2 at the start of this quarter?
Yeah, I think we're trying to change things up. We go back to zone here. I know that at some point we're going to have to tighten up, but at the same time, our offense has been shaky, so I feel like I need to stabilize that a little bit and make sure we're holding and then we have enough energy. So a lot of this is trying to figure out when I need to start shifting people over because I don't want to wait too late to do that because offense can be really efficient at bleeding the clock. And I think you really need to run a real possession on defense or to really to run a smart defensive kind of set. You need probably about 2 minutes of game time to be able to really put pressure on and build it over and over without chances, without taking too many risks. So we actually, later on, I'm gonna pull the trigger and I call a timeout. I think with 2:30 to go or something like that, and then put on my universe line, and then we just have to kind of go from there.
Jacob Fairfax didn't have a dime quite that nice in the All-Star game and catching Beau off guard. But look, let's be honest, as Ultimate fans, we think Beau should guard Fisher under, give him 10 yards, and just let's do
Yeah, Beau, that was the play Beau almost made prior to that with Fisher. That was a nice break here. Beau tried to bait it a little bit, and Fairfax just ripped a pretty nice throw, and Henry stuck with it.
He didn't just let it go. He made the effort to go all the way down.
I think Saul and Tristan do a really good job double teaming here, but
he hustled, and I like that.
But Harper has some nice little breaks and kind of renders them ineffective. I thought Harper had a sneaky good game.
Well, we had to just be prepared for the double team over and over again because you don't want Harper throwing deep a lot. So it's something that he had to practice against a lot of times and be ready for. And that's just where Harper's really developed that part of his game even more. He's always been known for the big throws, but like you said, he has the sneakiness. He has he has this. Harper doesn't feel pressure in the same way I think other people do. He has a really great sense of camaraderie with his teammates, and I think he plays for other people a lot. And I think it's something that really endears me to him. And so I think he just doesn't feel the weight of it in the same way that other players do. I think he has this almost nonchalant way of dealing with the pressure and dealing with it's almost as if when the pressure gets higher, he plays better.
Yeah, he's definitely shown some maturity. If we could get a rewind on this cut, this is kind of a next level end zone cut that Jack does. He's done this through college, but it's kind of a cool thing for people to see. I guess you can see it on the replay here, but basically our defender has him sealed off on the fore side, so Jack jukes him and cuts to the back cone instead of hitting the front cone, and Ben throws a nice space throw there. You can maybe see it here. So Andrew McKelvey has him on the front cone. He's beat him to the front cone, and his hips are kind of shift the wrong way, and Jack just fades to the back cone. That's a really nice next level end zone cut for some people that want a new tool in their toolbox. That's also Jack Williams doing that, remember? But yeah, McKelvey's a good defender. So that was a.
Can you stop giving away all of the advantages we have?
Sorry. You have Jack now. I'm going to tell you exactly what he does.
Kieran Allen out there this 0 point. Bobby Lay starting downfield, and Allen was nearly stranded. Mike Drost playing without his twin brother Ryan tonight. First game of the year that Ryan.
I'm listening to the broadcast and just hear that. I forgot that we didn't have Ryan. Ryan's a huge defender for us. I mean, Ryan is really one of our cornerstone of people that can take big matchups. And without having him this game, you kind of have to switch people on to different things. And we certainly have people to fill in, but Ryan played that role for us of taking kind of the one matchup.
There's Henry's second kind of stick when there's some pressure on him. So he had the Beau one and then the yacht one there. So those are things that, a couple of years back, maybe Henry misses, but because he's worked on that stuff, he's catching them every time now, which is great.
And Mike, speaking of a couple of years back, Jacob Fairfax wouldn't have thrown a 45-yard crossfield hammer a couple of years.
Jacob's always been a pretty capable thrower, but I think he had a conversation with Nutt at one point in time, and he
Yeah.
was throwing with Nutt, and Nutt was like, "Why aren't you throwing these in games?" Or, and I think that was the trigger mechanism for him to start throwing them. And once Nutt left, like, we had to distribute the wealth a little bit more, and Jacob certainly is capable of doing it. So, yeah, he's turned into a incredible, like, dual threat. He's been an awesome piece. It's going to be great to see, like, him and Henry kind of grow up together because they're still really young.
And Eric Taylor and all the other young guys
Yeah.
they have.
I think that throw was coming early in the game.
Yeah.
With the momentum that Raleigh's had, he was.
Yeah, Eric's pretty amazing too. We have a lot of talent. It's just the experience that comes with the tight games, and once we get that, I think we'll be in a really good spot. Connor Russell is moving. He's going to be in Raleigh, so that'll be nice. He'll have full seasons ahead of him, and he's a really talented piece, and he's left-handed. Like, that'll be another person that, big body that we need, and he'll be awesome to have around.
JD with a really nice integrity call right there.
Yeah.
Call a foul on yourself if there's a turnover, as we see Jack Williams.
He's somebody that I would want if, like, I had to pick one person to kind of have a beer with, besides, I guess, Saul, because I mentioned him earlier. JD's like the person I'd want to have a beer with. He seems awesome. Me and him trash talk all the time in, like, a loving way, but, like, that's all our relationship is just trash talk. We've never talked about anything real before, but just every time we see each other, we'll make sure that we.
Yeah, JD's not afraid to talk a fair bit of trash, but he's definitely, I think, the person I text with the most on the team, just to talk a little trash back and forth with, but either about people or just in general, life in general. So he's a fun dude to have on a team, but he's also a great teammate and obviously a really good player.
A great one. Under 7 minutes to go after the pull was released, the clock.
And if you've never seen his football video where he scores 8 touchdowns in a game, just Google that, please, everyone. Just immediately go and Google that. Yeah, he scores 8 touchdowns in a Pee Wee football game. He runs for like 600 yards or something and scores 8 touchdowns. It's incredible. Every highlight he has, I think his dad used to cut highlights of his football days. Every highlight he has is like a 60-yard touchdown run. It's incredible.
That's great. Bobby is such an interesting player, especially, one of the things that's coming from the Florida system where he really was dominant. I feel like he fits in so well for you guys in a natural way. Just the cross-field throws really opens things up, and he has, like, this really great game right until the end, which is just a little tough. But I mean, you're playing with a new team, third game in the season. Like, I think some of those errors are going to happen, but he just is really tough to figure out.
Yeah, he's just super steady, and he almost always makes the right choice, and he is, an incredible, like, reset to have, and it's something we needed. Losing John as a reset, because that's a really underutilized piece of Nethercut's game, is just his ability to get resets. Just having somebody like Bobby who's able to do that and kind of move the offense in that fashion and not necessarily have as big a throws as Dutt did, but, like, he still has good throws and good edge throws. It was great to have him right away, and he integrated pretty seamlessly. It's just those little system things he still has to learn: defensive scheme, defensive positioning, that kind of stuff. But offensively, he just kind of fits in and does his thing and does it really well. He's a really good piece for us. He'll be a good piece for years.
Pretty good hustle by Pannoni again, running downfield. Garvey swings it, and there was contact on the mark though, so this is going back. It's Garvey.
Little pre throw contact. Say that again.
Did you talk any trash to Jack at any point during the game?
No, I don't talk any trash to Jack. I still talk to Jack frequently. His sister lives like a block away from me, so I'll text with him, and when I go to New York, I'll meet up with him every once in a while. Cool. I think he's actually in North Carolina now because he can't do anything because of the shut down. So I think he's I think he's at his parents' house. But yeah, I don't really talk smack to former players. I just kind of let them be. I don't want to mess with people like that. Maybe after the game a little bit, but not during. What'd you say?
That you'd coached against him before in college. So
yeah, well, yes. There was a particular game where I remember that I coached against him in college. I think he just blacked out and scored like 10 goals against us.
I mean, I turned that game off when you guys were up by 4 late in the second half, so I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you might want to turn this one off early too. This was another like magic hand of yacht here. Just like D-Rich makes a play. If D-Rich lets us go by, it's a turnover, and he tips it, which you can't blame him. He's trying to touch the disc and deflect it, and then it just pops right into Yacht's hands.
You see, he touched the back end of the Frisbee. It tipped
yeah, there's. I'd rather be lucky than good sometimes.
He was really he was magical this game. He had so many of these. There's a late one. There's 2 late ones in this game too. You'll see coming up. And I think both of them are Allen laying out, and he has Yacht like dead to rights. Actually, I think one's Connor Russell. I think Jack throws a pressure hammer to Yacht, and Connor Russell's on him, and Yacht just total 50-50 catches it. And then another one where Allen has him dead to rights and lays out. And I don't know how Yacht catches it, but you'll see it. It's like he has like 4 or 5 of these spectacular catches in this game that just like keep you in it. And when it's like, just get one of those and this game's over. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Ben Yacht for my Coach of the Year award. Pretty good.
You should thank Grant Lindsley for the final performance. That guy was surgical in that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things when you look back at the stats of that game and you look at 800 yards of offense, and I think that would just be like an all-time high in a lot of ways, but you just don't know because we don't have I can't wait for the stats to be available. All of a sudden, a 400-yard throwing game becomes like 300-yard quarterbacks used to be for the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool once these stats are integrated.
Two great players head to head, and there was pass interference. It looked like Beau was ready to call it on himself if the official didn't blow.
I mean, this game is awesome just because you get matchups like this so frequently.
Yeah.
I mean, Misha versus Beau on a deep shot in a close game in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Yes.
Beau almost gets this cleanly too, which is incredible. Because like I was saying, Misha's box out is so good, and Beau almost kind of manipulates his body to touch it before he gets it, but he just whacks his hand. But man, it's just incredible.
Misha and Bobby making the same exact cut.
Make what?
Misha and Bobby were making that same exact cut up the line, like they were shadows of one another.
Florida system,
there's
I
no
guess.
defender in sight. This was something we were doing in the fly. So we had discussed this in game, started to make changes to this of what we were going to do in our end zone defense, and we were just trying to get something going, and we couldn't do it. So our risk-taking threshold just had to go way up. Now at 251, I'm really starting to think, okay, we hopefully get a quick score, and we got to get our best defensive line on the field. So I think I score here and we take a timeout and just try to put our best D-line on to get tied and go to overtime. Because we're getting closer.
I mean, was there any point late in this game where the thought popped in your mind, a loss isn't the worst thing in the world? Could re-energize us for the stretch run? Being undefeated is a little dangerous considering we haven't played great.
I don't know. I mean, I just didn't care at all about going undefeated. At all. I didn't care about – I cared about winning a championship. It was about where we were going to be at the end of the season. The only thing I cared about in this game about winning it was the number 1 seed. That was a thought that was in my mind of that could be an advantage of being able to go in the championship weekend and have – because you're playing a doubleheader. So that first game, if you were number 1 and you draw the 4, there's a pretty good advantage there. So there was value in trying to win this game. We were going to learn a lot from it, but I already we didn't talk about going undefeated at all. like period. It just was never a thing for us. It was only a thing on the Tuesday toss.
A little betting insight for you, Brian. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a ton of people lost money on your Indianapolis line because of the run
was
you
more
gave
than
up at the
aware.
end of that game. Everyone was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like you were favored by like 3, and the entirety of the world took the line. Here's the yacht play I was talking about on Connor, and then he throws this to Katz. That was like a magic like back-to-backer.
We had to score quickly.
Yeah. This was incredible, though. This catch right here was, that's a frustration one as a coach. You're like, you scheme everything perfectly and he still makes that catch. And then he throws a loopy, this is like kind of the same thing Bobby throws at the end of our game, except Katz catches it.
Yeah, Yacht is going to throw another one of these. It's going to be a huck. He's going to throw a throw that isn't shaped in the way that you would expect. And, we're just playing. We're just slinging it. There's no real, we're just trying to score quickly. We're trying to put pressure on, take the timeout now, get a universal line out there. Because right now, with 2 minutes to go, I'm thinking this is it. Because our guys don't play a lot of, this year, we hadn't played a lot of like pressure person defense and just like really make you guys like go strong. So we want to still play smart and utilize our strengths. So this is getting people on fresh. And we didn't have any chances. So I think I took the timeout, and then I have one available because we're going to have to use it.
Brian, how many times during the season did you take a timeout in between points as opposed to during a point?
This might have been the only one. I may have done it one other time. But this was the game where we were down so much that we had, because this was the one game we were really down. Like we won all of our games close, but this one we had to come back in. And so we needed, like, I think because I had 2, it was like, well, I might as well use one. Like, there's no reason not to, because you're not going to use 2 of them to score at this point.
Yeah, they're so precious to utilize, but then when you get to the end of the game, that's exactly the way you can use them to benefit you. Yeah, even though it's a small amount of time, it's like what are the odds you're going to use 2 timeouts in the next like 2 minutes? So you might as well use one to give your guys a little extra rest, especially if you can stack a line. But it's rare that you use them in between points because you already it's only a small amount of time you get. But in this situation, it's perfect.
And this point is going to end pretty quick. I think it's like 25-second point.
Yeah.
It's good and bad. When we're trying to make you guys go into a D, but if you guys are going to score, I'd rather you guys do it quickly rather than slowly.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think this is fine for you. And what I'm thinking is in this situation, just don't let what happens happen. It's like all we have to do is not let you score. Make you throw as many passes as possible to get a goal. And then I think this next point is the one Yacht throws to Connor. But it's one of those things where it's like, make them throw 10 throws to score a goal because it's going to kill time. But don't let them throw like 3 or 4 throws. And I think that's what happens here. But I emphasize that with the players. And that's just a kind of either it's a communication breakdown on my point or a player not really understanding the message or the situation. But really, any player in this situation should be making their player go under because it's going to make you all throw more throws. And that's all you're thinking right now is utilize the time you're given. Take as much time as humanly possible off the clock. And I don't think that happens here.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to play soft and then really be perfectly on the bend, don't break sort of thing because there's just so much room. But you guys,
there's the Allen layout. That's the one I was saying. Yep. So right there, right? Like our defender lets, I think that throw is really wonky and weird, like shape-wise. So, but at the same time, our defender could still be behind his guy there, and he wasn't.
Yeah. This is such a weird angle, and because this is one of the things where it's like Allen making that decision to bid. It's a hard with this amount of time remaining. You don't need a block. You just need a good mark. And so if Allen doesn't bid
Yeah.
there, even though he has a really good shot at it, you might get a situation where Yacht can't throw that. But now he has this like space to throw whatever type of throw he wants. He throws a weird one. He's unmarked, and that kind of allows us. So it's a weird thing. It's hard. Like,
yeah,
I've been in that.
I think that one. I'd be fine. I'm fine with Allen bidding there because I think a large percentage of the time he gets that. Like if that's like a 30-70, I wouldn't. But I think he gets that D like 75% of the time. So that one I'm okay with. But I understand your point. You don't want to let Yacht throw a free throw. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I think the more upsetting thing is the fact that we just let the next person go deep instead of letting him get an under.
Yeah, and here I'm hoping that we get the double team on. We have to be more aggressive than this. We're still like we don't have much time, and you guys can work it, and you guys do. It's just on like there's the knife's edge. You're running out of a little bit of real estate. We're not getting the double teams on. And this is like, I'm hoping, from the side, you can't do anything right now. You're playing in a desperation setting.
I mean, the only thing I'd say about this situation here, besides, obviously Kieran's open, but how many times have you seen Misha in our backfield in the entirety of the game? Probably like 3 times. And now all of a sudden he becomes the dump. Because it's one of those situations where it's like, you tighten up, you want the game to end, and you do something different. And that little thing there is like very costly because Bobby and Eric and the people that run the offense, like the handler set, are perfectly capable of getting resets and ending the game. But then you throw a wild card in and it's like, well, now there's an extra person back there and the space is limited. And, while Eric made that throw and that's on him, it's just one of those things where you're cluttering up places where you can create more space. And it's like you're doing that to end the game. And it's like the one systematic thing where you break down in a situation where it's like, all right, I haven't done anything like this all game, and now I'm going to decide to be a reset. So just little things like that are differences between winning and losing.
Yeah, it's interesting how you look at it from that perspective. It's something I would never think about as having Misha there as being abnormal. But it's like one of those things I think you try to do is we're good at this. Players do your role, do those well, and don't worry about anything else. And the more you do that, you're going to be on the same page. You're going to be able to know what people are supposed to be doing. And like you said, preserve the space. I think coming in, we're fortunate here as New York, but coming out of this is, I think, Jack and Harper's call of what type of play is going to run. And then, Evan, you document this. I think Jack kind of understands of like what type of cuts he's been making and what the other team expects, because this is a wild throw. Cats makes an incredible play here just to put this into overtime. And Jack at the front cone. I've never really seen anything like this.
Yeah, Cats throws this throw earlier in the game. This like weird bendy around. And it's a really good play. There's not much you can do to even defend that. Like Saul has to take the 4-side space, and then Jack kind of spin moves him, and then Cats throws this crazy break around Tristan. And then Tim could peel off a little bit and help, but what are the odds of that throw being thrown into the corner accurately? So it's a really good tight space throw.
And if you help off, you give it to Harper, who's got a hammer to put up to Yacht or Beau or Jeff, which is not a great, you don't, it's one of those things where having the gravity of the players you have allows you guys don't poach as much because you're afraid of the throw going up and the tall players making plays. And so it gives space to Jack there and just unreal. It's such a fun throw to watch. It's a fun play. It's like perfect.
It's not fun for me, Brian. It's not fun for me.
You can appreciate it on some level, I hope.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's not fun. It's a great play, though. It's a really smart, and that's the thing I was just talking about. Like, you create so much space there. Even if Jack doesn't get that, and the mark seals Cats' throw off, Cats can just wing a hammer onto the 4-side or a fading backhand. Like, there's just so many outs there to still have your shot. So this is interesting here at the end of the game. Terrence almost catches this disc. I don't know if you've ever noticed this before, but he's like a foot away from the disc when it ricochets off.
Hey, as coaches, how agonized are these end of quarter situations?
I'm not really agonizing. I'm just kind of thinking about what to do, but usually I'm more just trying to scheme. That one, if you can, I definitely, like, if you see one of my tells is when I'm stressed out a little bit is I put my hands on my head. And I've never noticed before, but I just noticed there when I was walking away from the timeout call, my hands were on my head. So definitely stressed. Yeah, so watch Terrence here. His hand, like, it was like really close that his hand was like out about, 6 inches, 7 inches away from it.
Terrence Mitchell looks like after Babbitt hit it, it looked like he had.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little deeper on this. I go through a little bit of pre-grief, and I just imagine the worst situation possible, and then that way, if it happens, I can be prepared for it.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. A little pre-grief. That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah, look at this is a good replay here, Terrence. Terrence.
I think if you had to do that one again, Fairfax felt a little rushed. He probably would have liked to get a little.
Fairfax could have hung that a little more. That's what I was hoping, but it's still,
Jump. I think that advantaged the defense with a laser throw, but still nearly that opportunity for Terrence to come down with it.
A reminder of the overtime rules.
All right, overtime.
I'm just trying to keep our guys motivated right here. I mean, obviously, like, that's not a great way to end the game, so just keep your spirits high, keep basically preaching the right things. That's not a great way to end the, that's kind of what I was talking about, staying in the moment. It's like, that's not a fantastic way to end a regular time game, but, like, we're still in it, and we can still win the game, and, the world's still our oyster, so we should be refocused and trying to live in the moment, and that's what I'm just thinking here. Just get everyone on the same page and get them level again.
And as our viewers will see shortly, for a game that was incredibly clean for the most part with efficient offense, only 2 points are scored in 5 minutes in overtime. I mean, the pressure, it felt mounted for both teams here.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, earlier I mentioned space, like creating space, and good offense is about creating space and creating chunky, space in front and windows to throw to that give the next person a long option and a short option. And if you watch our offense here versus the rest of the game, everything condenses, and that's just a surefire signal that people are tight. When you're tight, you don't spread out. When you're tight, you try to go closer to the disc because you feel like it's safer, when actually it's the exact opposite thing you should do. And you'll see here, like, versus the amount of big chunky throws we have the rest of the game, like, we don't have many here going into overtime.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of.
There's the hands on the head.
You can feel good about this in some ways as a coach, but it's like one of those things that's hard to read. It, like, when you're in the moment, you feel like, oh yeah, I caused this, I caused that, but there's, the other team matters a lot of, like, how they're feeling about a situation and how the bounces have gone and everything like that. Like, if Terrence catches that disc, the narrative changes in an instant, and if we don't get lucky on a couple of bounces, all of a sudden, the story isn't the same. The margins in sports are so thin. I felt like, though, we had started to come kind of close in the fourth quarter. We weren't playing great defense, but I feel like the depth really shines here for us as the Empire, because there's a couple of guys that are just fresher and ready to go. And, it's on one hand, from the other side, it could be Mike's talked about kind of the nerves and, like, not being able to hit the big chunk throws, but it's a hard thing of, like, how much of it is your players, your strategy, versus the other team maybe not playing their best. And that's a trap you fall into, is, like, you could feel like after this game, if you're the Empire, like, oh, okay, we're like a team of destiny. But the reality is you have a lot to work on. And so you try to remove, you asked about it earlier, like, Evan, how do we, like, have this dispassionate view of the game. Is like, if you don't, you start feeling too good about yourself, and then all of a sudden you're like, your confidence is not based on a really good like in a really good standard. You need to try to get better, or else you're getting worse.
Final words of wisdom from David Allison. Left to right, Taylor, Laviolette, Freistatter, Mitchell, Lay, Fisher, and Fairfax.
I still thought, mentally we were in a good spot here. Like, I felt like the team's morale wasn't down at all. Like, obviously it's like kind of a shock to be in this situation, but like I was walking the sidelines and I felt like people were pretty upbeat, which was great. That's part of the growth aspect. Like, I think we've taken some on the chin the last couple of years, and I feel like being able to kind of neutralize yourself in these moments are really important.
And two teams battling for the top spot in the league.
I put on Tristan Yarder in this point.
Voice of Ultimate, Evan Lepler.
Hey, it's an honor to be
Sorry,
here.
He hadn't really played it. No, he just hadn't played that many important points for us at this point in the season, and really had gotten inserted late. And so Tristan's the type of young guy who I think can guard a lot of positions, and I think he ends up guarding somebody big here. He guards Fairfax, and he does a reasonable job at times. It's somebody who I think has a lot of growth. He's just unafraid. Like, that's one of the things that's like kind of great about a young guy, is like sometimes they don't know like about other players and they just play naturally, and Tristan's that type of kid.
Misha's been getting that all game.
How old is he? Is he?
That's a matchup switch, by the way. Beau had been
college?
This was his freshman year at Pitt. Yeah, he was.
Gotcha,
He was 18 at the time of this game.
So, like, take a look around our offensive spacing, how people are cutting. Like, we've already thrown probably 10 to 12 throws, and we've gone, like, 7 yards. So this is the stuff I'm talking about. Like, people are condensing instead of expanding, and they're all cutting in all weird shapes and patterns, and people are all over the place. There's picks. So that's an indicator to me that, like, people are trying to rush the point or get the point over with. They're doing things that are not natural to what we need them to do. And in spite of all that, we get really close to the end zone.
90 seconds into overtime, gets it across midfield. And now Mitchell exploding to the pylon.
But like, if you look at that like blob of players running down the field together, it's like spacing's not there.
You guys regrouped nicely after the pick call, I thought.
Raleigh showing nice patience.
Yeah, we turned this one though.
Taylor a little bit.
I spoke too soon.
Yeah, so I thought we did a good job digging our way out of it, and then we just made one mistake, and which was fine. The choice was fine. It was just a technical error.
More than 2 minutes gone in OT.
Evan, I liked that switch on the matchups for Beau.
Yeah, I think that's that's right. Like, there's a lot of, you can look at it. I think anytime the offense makes a mistake, there's always room to improve upon, and like in the exception of like really, really great defensive plays. I do think that there's like, from our own standpoint, there's a little bit of, it's always interesting of how an offense feels uncomfortable, and like they show it in different ways, but like little changes in marking angles, little changes in double teams, taking away plan A for a team can really make them go just for like a possession or two, be a little bit off kilter. And that's the thing that's really interesting here is like looking back at the film, it's like there's, our defense doesn't force a turnover here, but I still like the way that they're taking away certain options.
Yeah, they do a very good job limiting options. I definitely don't want to take credit away from that. I think what you see there, though, on our end is the fact that there are multiple players doing unnatural things for what their role is for the team. Like, you'll see, I'll give you some like small examples, like Bobby cuts up the field and goes really, really deep to the stack and then returns on an under and just kind of clogs all the cutting lanes. And then, there's another play where like Eric does another set there that Eric does the same thing. And it's like, those are things where it's fine in a normal environment to try those things. But like, this is a time when we need everyone's defined role to be the most defined it's been in the game, and not throw like wild cards in there. Because like you said, it's like, you don't want to be thinking here. You want to be reacting as much as you can. This is really good defense. They stopped basically everything. And then they stopped all the resets, and Jack had to scuba his way out of it.
Yeah, we could have also done better offensively.
we throw a couple, do a couple hacky fouls on the mark. That's another sign of like nervous energy, right? How many times have we fouled on the mark in the game? Probably like 3, and we just had 2 in a row. Right there.
Because we're outside of the final minute. Oh, how about that two-handed backhand break from Katz, and then Williams to the
Goodness, Ben Katz had ridiculous throws in this game.
He had some really good little dime pieces.
Let's see if we get that replay of Katz again. That was a brilliant.
I mean, the one to tie it in regulation was great, but this one's filthy too.
Yep.
Is an incredible throw. The difficulty level in that is so high. Being able to throw under.
That was one of the biggest,
Brian, in these throws.
And almost when you throw, your wrist has to bend.
No, the good part about it is like putting your players in a position to succeed, and Ben made that easy for us. But like it really is. It was the biggest surprise of the season was just how important was Ben Katz was for our offense. That was something that we figured out later on. So, and he really proved himself, and that's credit to him. He just another type of guy who's not afraid of any really moment whatsoever, and he has a really good mind for the game, and it extends to both offense and defense.
So this is good here. Once again, you're trying to muck us up a little bit with some soft junk, and it works, right? We're tight, and we're trying to. We know we need to score here, so we're thinking a little more than reacting, and we eventually do a good job of getting out of it. But I think Bobby has to bail us out here, and Fairfax has to bail us out. So it's once again one of those things where your defense caused us to think a little too much, and that's where we weren't running as an efficient offense as we could.
Yeah, I wish we had ended the game on this.
Yeah, but definitely played some good downfield defense too in this set.
Yeah, throughout the game, we just had like a couple of blown switches, a couple of miscommunications that caused us to like give up some really easy scores. And it's a lot of the little things kind of started to come together by the end of it, where we just kind of figured out something that could be better. And like you said, really, I'm trying to drain clock here. I mean, with my offense, with the way we've been holding, I feel like if we can get a possession at the end of this and we time it right, we should be in a good position. But it doesn't work out the way that I'd like it to. The time just doesn't go in our favor. But like you said, good transition. Defenders now are in a pretty good spot. It's a good go-to by Misha. Mike Dross is coming on pretty fast.
Yep. I thought that was going to be a D when I was watching it live. Misha did a really good job attacking it.
This is just the second point of the overtime, which is now down to.
I like what I'm seeing now because I'm starting to see players like double take.
There you go. So this is almost the good catch, bad throw combo, but unfortunately Fairfax saves it on the double jump.
Yeah. Everything's gone crazy now, right? Like Ben Katz has tied it up in overtime, and now it's just everybody's making plays. And this one I was like, oh, we're so close. I've watched this over and over again. And Albert, he gets to the body, he's looking at it, and it's just, so close to getting the block.
Yeah, he plays great D there. It's about as good positionally as you can get, and it's just like a split, an inch or two. And the help's there too. Is that, I don't know who that is, but
that's Jeff from the backside.
Late. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right, Beau.
Now New York has 30 seconds to try and win it.
That bid that Bobby made is like one of the reasons we love Ultimate. And of course he lost the throw and the glory is almost taken away, but that catch, I mean, in a nutshell, that's why we love this sport, right? Because it plays like that.
It was incredible. Like watching it live, just how close he is to the ground, how far the disc is away from him when he still makes the catch. We do a really good job preventing you from having a good look, a good last look.
And
Look
yeah,
at Jeff's expression though after this, though. Jeff looks at his hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff is like, man, this is the type of thing about him is he just, like, this is a hard play to make, and he's just so good at getting a position. Because it goes in and out of his hand, I think.
Oh, yeah. And
Oh,
Katz
yeah.
almost catches it, too. Katz almost catches it in the back of the end zone right here. He should have caught it, too.
D-Rich,
I don't think he touched it. I think he missed it, but I think Jeff thought he was going to tap it. That's why he didn't catch it.
Watch he gets up is in disbelief that he dropped that. What an ending that could have been.
And what an ending that will be. Cats can't.
Good foreshadowing there, Evan.
yeah.
You actually do a really good job foreshadowing this, Evan, when you talk about how the game's going to end with Kurt, like, early in the game. You're like, do you think it's going to be a great play or a mess up? And it was like a combination of both.
Ben Katz could have taken
I'll tell you, Kurt and I were clicking
That catch.
the second half of this game.
Wow.
Do you, as coaches, know exactly who your 7 on the line is going to be, like, with a minute to go in regulation? What's that process like of figuring out who's on the line here?
But I don't know if we thought it was going to be this good.
You want to go
Well, I
first,
think
Brian?
Here I'm going with my universe O-line, and a lot of that has to do with, like, who's been playing where. And so I think I make the mistake of leaving Beau off of this initial one.
Unbelievable.
Just because he has the gamer sense of it. I think defensively it's a lot about different.
Fairfax makes the grab, and then the final seconds, both Babbitt and
Gosh, that was close. Yeah, situationally, D, it depends on what you want to run in that moment, but I think most teams will have a universe O-line, and they probably won't deviate from it unless there's an injury or a player's having a particularly bad game, but like we always have a 7 that we know is going on when it matters the most.
David Richardson, Tim McAllister, Alan Laviolette, and Jacob Fairfax. Interesting, no Misha Freistadter. And for New York,
That was the thing here, though, is I really felt like we've been holding a lot. Our offense, hopefully, we'll score here. But in our double overtime games, we've turned it over both times. So,
And without spoiling it, it's interesting to note that the guy who does eventually catch the final goal is not on the field at the start of this universe point total over.
We do a really good job to prevent this. Like we do a lot of soft pressure here, and I thought we do a really good job. Like Allen does a good job on Connor there, preventing a deep puck from going up. And you guys run it laterally, but we definitely put a lot of pressure to make you throw it negative and stretch the cutters out. Just in general, I think we definitely, gave ourselves some time and forced you to make a bad, or just forced you to make more of a tired choice here, which is great.
yeah.
I thought our team
at
played
this
really
point,
well here.
At this point, we kind of, you want to end the game in some capacity, and it's hard to just be like, all right, we just have to score one more.
However this
Yep.
ends, Kurt, this has been an incredible battle, and we can only
Good
hope
switches here,
that
too.
this
JD
could
switches
end
with Tim.
7
That was a
weeks
really
in
good
a row
roll.
in the championship game,
That could have been a
and it might
disaster.
very well be these two teams. But
Yeah, now we're working from the middle of the field, which is not the place where we want to be.
this
Yep.
could be the
And then
final
Ben
throw
takes
of
his
the
shot
night.
and
Ben Yacht looking
just
for
too long.
Connor Klein, but it's too far in front. Raleigh has a chance.
Connor was open.
So
That was definitely an open
Little-
one.
Timeout, as
a little
do the
rushed.
Fire. Timeout called. The Flyers can get the O-line on the field. The second time this year that the Empire have received the disc to start double overtime and turn it over. Now, the last time they were the fortunate.
So who did you sub in and out here? Do you remember?
I actually don't. But we're going to
Particularly.
go with a D-line heavy offense. So, because I think, we'll hopefully be able to use our next time out. So it's going to be about getting the turnover.
New York ended up punching it in. They said it didn't feel like a win. Now they're going to really need to play defense to get the win on the road.
I thought Yacht hit that.
Absolutely. You see Ben Yacht here.
Was Yacht a tennis player? He throws like a tennis player.
He obviously wants that throwback.
I don't know. I mean, he was doing celebrations like a tennis player. I know there's a bunch of New
that's a
York
good
people
point.
that play
That's a
tennis,
good point.
but
Including this one.
His backhand looks like he plays like he played tennis.
Throwing it far outside of the defender's reach. He got it out there, but much too much of a laser, not enough air under it to make it catchable.
Bobby, just in this point, the escape Bobby has here is really sweet. The throw Allen has and the escape Bobby has when Allen's pinned on the sideline, it's really fun. Just keep your eye on Bobby when Allen has the disc on the sideline whenever that happens.
yeah, we have a
Bobby
blown
just
switch again.
peels out. Yeah, but Bobby does a really good job hiding it and then peeling upfield, and Allen throws a pretty nice throw and pressure. This is good defense,
Brian,
too, in the beginning. This is good, like, making us throw, a short pass to Terrence right away. Just basically got us nothing.
And with the stall count rising and no timeout, Mitchell finds Lay. Back to Terrence.
I wish we were giving a little bit more pressure there. But,
Yeah.
you're stranded
I
there
thought
with Terrence as a dump.
Yeah, I thought Katz was going to get that one. That one that he almost poached in on.
Bobby Lay just working Jack Williams. I like that matchup for New York, but Bobby Lay just showing his...
So there's Bobby. Here's Bobby. Allen throws that nice flick there.
Bobby throwing it ahead to Fairfax. This is for the game.
Ugh.
Babbitt bids and denies the win.
So, like, a couple of things went wrong there. And I've talked to Jacob about this. If you watch Jacob's cut initially, I want that more vertical. I mean, Bobby obviously throws it to the sideline, but also he's throwing to the space Jacob's going to. So he's throwing to a place where there's another defender, and then Bobby throws it a little inside out. So, like, if Jacob takes that more vertical and Bobby throws it outside in like he should, I don't think there's any way really, unless Jeff makes, like, a spectacular play like that in, like, the back of the end zone, I don't think he gets that. But, man, that was difficult to watch.
Yeah, when the throw went up, there was a little doubt. I think I trusted Jeff to kind of do Jeff things. Again, Evan Lepler, as you said, really great coaching.
Yeah. It's amazing how you teach all these guys how to do these types of things. It's remarkable.
Couple shots to the end zone that could have been the finish. And we press on.
You haven't taught anyone your no-look scuba, though. I mean, no one can do it like you can. We'll still wait for that.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty good. But, there are a couple people with some better skill sets. I think Harper, has a pretty good hammer. And a pretty good scuba. So I think he's set there. And then, Jack won practice to throw a thumber. So you should ask him about that sometime, Mike.
What was that? He threw a thumber?
Yeah.
Wow.
Probably just took the wind out of him there. So New York will catch its collective breath.
I mean, this was
that was a heck of a play.
Here.
Wow. Bobby Lay, the player.
It kind of speaks for itself, but I mean, Jeff just brings this attitude and this athleticism that you rarely see to the game, and that throw could be trailing out of bounds, but I'm pretty sure Jacob probably makes that catch and toes the line if Jeff's not there. So, it's one of those things that's hard to know for sure, but Jeff definitely saves the game for us, and this really sets up a really fun moment, and it's just at this point I think everybody's exhausted. It's like we have the timeout to put our O-line back in and to put Beau on. Mike, are you thinking about going with fresh guys here, or who are you going with? How are you?
Yeah, we went with mostly fresh people. I think Allen, we kept Allen on and maybe Fairfax, but I think we brought Misha and Saul, Tim. I don't remember if JD's on here, but we brought in mostly fresh bodies. We just made sure we had throwers on. I don't know if Eric's on here too. But in retrospect, I wish I looked at who you had on before I did that. But I felt that those were the freshest bodies we could have, the best defenders. Like D-Rich almost gets that one too. It's like there's so many close bids he has this game. It's pretty incredible. He played a really good game. But like Misha here, why he gets beat here is that he just doesn't commit to taking away
Jack lets it fly.
that like deep space again. That's a really nice throw by Jack, but you know, I think as a defender there, Misha's got to be thinking like that's what Beau's trying to set up. So he's got to just press him to the sideline.
Yeah. I love Jack's throw here. I know I love to give Jack
so pretty.
a kidding time. I love to kid Jack around, but like there's no way we win a championship without him. I mean, he is just like this incredibly stable like player from whatever role he plays in. Like I think for us, he doesn't get as much press as like Grant or Yacht did in the big performances in the championship game, but Jack was just this like engine that did whatever we needed him to do, and he's not afraid of the moment. That backhand huck is just so he throws it like really high. He's got this interesting release, but it's just really consistent. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure as you probably have a love for Jack, and he's a really easy player to love, and Beau just makes the most of this.
One more step and he would have been out.
6 inches from being out of bounds. Jack Williams put it where only Beau Kittredge could catch it. He gives it to the Raleigh fan.
The first and only goal of the night for Beau.
That's pretty funny. I just heard you say that's the only goal he had tonight, Evan.
Yep.
I didn't even realize that.
He sure does. Hanging with all the young guys out here.
So Brian, clearly, obviously, you guys are fired up. And Mike, there's the flip side of the coin. Do you remember what you said to the team in the huddle after the game, if anything?
Made that play of the game at the end of regulation to put it into OT. If it wasn't for Beau,
I just said this is a small part of our season, and it was a great game, and it shows that we're exactly where we need to be, which is one of the best teams in the league, and we just have to continue to get back to the grind and work on these little things, these little physical and mental breakdowns we had in this game, to prepare us for the next one. And I really, really wish this game was like, 2 or 3 weeks later, but it was a great battle, and I was really happy to have it because it helped us prepare for the rest of the season.
I think for us, it was a fun team building moment. Like, you get to go back to the hotel, you get to enjoy the win, and you come together a little bit as a team. There may have been like some feelings of like, okay, we pulled it out, but for me, it was like setting up the stage to do more work and just really, we were going to enjoy the night and then get back to work the next day. A lot of ways to get better, but this is one of the things about the AUDL is that these one-off games, traveling to Raleigh, facing all these good players and great coaching and trying to like scheme and do all these things, it's just, there's nothing better than it.
Agreed.
Got a couple questions to ask you guys. First up, Brian, Melissa Stevens really wants to know what you're sipping on.
It's some nice summer ale. So,
Sam Summer. Can't beat it.
Yeah. That's right.
Luke Need asks, and Brian, we'll start with you. When you coach, do you talk to cutters and handlers differently to thinking about NBA coaches who have different mindsets, floor general as opposed to shooters, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of role. I mean, I think one of the main philosophies is like everybody needs to be able to handle. You don't want people back there all the time, but at some point you're going to have to make some sort of throw back there. From there, though, I mean, there are guys that stretch the field a lot more. Connor kind of comes to mind there. So they're going to have a different role. So you're going to be talking differently to them because of what position they play.
Mike?
Yeah, we definitely have people on field that are talking differently to handlers and cutters. But off field, I think there's just strategic things that are different on how you attack the mindset of a handler and a cutter. So, on field, you're definitely having two sets of people discussing or talking with those sets of people. And then off field, you're just constantly kind of fine tuning both sets of that. Cutters, you're talking about spacing, you're talking about distance from the disc. You're talking about kind of adapting to when a teammate gets it. Handlers, you're just talking about reset spaces, body position, those kind of things, just constantly.
Mike, follow up on something you said during the game about how David Allison kind of switched roles heading into the club season where, typically he coached offense, you coached D, and then you reverse that. What's that dynamic like? I mean, obviously you've been a solo coach and have done both, but to be so dialed into your defense and then flip over to the offense, what's that like? And I know you did something similar in your coaching career.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. I think why we did it was that we each had a unique perspective on one side of the disc, and I think we both felt like we could take our strengths to the other side a little bit better while bringing our experience, while lending your experience back to the other side. So I think like on O, my mindset was better suited for the kind of mental aspect of it, and I think on D, his mindset was better suited for the technical aspect of it, and then we both could lean on each other when we needed each other. So it was definitely the first time I've coached offense in a long time, but I really enjoyed it. It was great, and I plan to continue to do it.
And Bryan, you, I know, took a lot of focus on the Empire offense, which is not something you've done a lot of offensive coaching at the club or AUDL level.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really fun about this opportunity that's why you take the job, is not only you have a team and an ownership group that's great, but like getting the chance to work closely with guys like Harper and Ben and Jeff and Beau and work with them in a different capacity than you're used to is a really fun thing, because it is different in a variety of ways. And so that was something throughout the season we were learning, like how to best use everybody. And was a really fun moment. I think, what Mike talked about was really interesting too, is that often that I think two coaches can come to the same decision, but they start from different points of view and work their way towards a common kind of understanding. And if you're more of a defensive minded person, you'll look for reasons why to use somebody in a different way on offense. And you'll eventually, want to use them in the same role as somebody like an offensive-minded person, but you'll start at a different point and gradually kind of whittle your way down to a point where it's like you have similar perspectives, but for different reasons.
Do you all have any questions for each other? I mean, I feel like I know both of you well, and I feel like there's a great mutual respect, but I don't feel like you guys have spent a ton of time together. So I'm curious if you guys have any questions for the other.
Boxers or briefs, Bryan?
Why not both? Boxer briefs.
I think we spend enough time with each other, outside whenever we see it, whenever at tournaments or whatnot. Like I feel like I'm relatively close with Bryan in terms of like coaches. So I don't have a lot of questions for him.
When did you feel like so for you, you've had a playing career for a long time and then, worked your way up. When did you feel like you had like figured it out, and then maybe you don't feel that way, but you feel confident that going forward that you can like mold the team to where you want them to be? Like, because I know that you started with UNC, was it like 8-10 years ago, and it built that program up. Like, How has your arc felt like for you?
I think when you start getting when you see progress being made and you start getting like big wins, like tournament wins or regional wins or things like that, I think there's like these mini humps that you have that show you're making progress in what you're doing and show positive growth. Like even for example, Ring last year, like you have these little like mini peaks. Like, we only won our pool the last 2 years out of the last, X amount of years we've made it. And this year we beat Revolver, which is someone we haven't beaten in a competitive game in a long time. So it's like, as long as I see those progressions being made, those are things that are super important to me in terms of like that feeling. I think when that started happening in maybe like 2012, 2013 for UNC, when we started winning tournaments and starting being really competitive at regionals, that's when I felt like, we had kind of arrived, and I felt confident what I was doing is right. You know, I don't necessarily like to gauge success on wins and losses, but you have to have some degree of that to be, you know, to end up being successful long term. You have to continue to climb the ladder. And, you know, we've been hitting our head on the top rung for a little while, but I think that's a big part of it. It's like once you feel that progress being made and those wins are being showing up in the stats sheet and the season after season consistency is there, like that's where I feel like it, you know, it's you've arrived.
So I'm not going to go and ask you.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead, Evan.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, you know, I'm not going to make you choose between Noah and Isaac, but you know, I did want to,
Noah.
You know, so
Noah.
Isaac has said so many nice things about Noah and written, you know, a lot of words about him. So I'm just going to ask you, you know, to give at least a 30 nice words about Isaac and his game.
I love Isaac. I think Isaac's awesome. Like he, you know, the stuff he's doing with the Tangle, his, you know, his online newsletter, like, you know, that stuff is so like the entrepreneur spirit in him. Like that's so awesome. But just like, I know, you know, in the public persona, like, you know, he gets some backlash, but I think Isaac's an awesome dude. Like I after US, I think it was Pro Flight. We were in the same car together with Ben. We were shooting, you know, the S, and it was super fun hanging out with him. I wish he was like around more because he's a cool dude to hang out with. So, you know, hopefully that's 30 words, but I'm a fan. I'm just a bigger fan.
One of the best dudes. No, Isaac's one of the best dudes around, and you know, he can say a lot for his break throws. He's got some really quick releases that other people don't have. So it's interesting to see brothers who have different throwing habits.
He also went to Pittsburgh, which is a huge problem, huge strike against him. But I'll look past that.
And the thing I'll say about Isaac, he's probably a first-class heckler. I mean, he's the only guy like at college nationals that really, I don't want to say got Mitch Dangler off his game, but flustered Mitch to the point that Mitch had to reprimand him multiple times on the sideline.
Well, he did bring a blowhorn to the sideline, a megaphone to the sideline, so that's part of it. That's part of the reason why.
I don't know how we ended up talking about Isaac. Last thing, and then we'll wrap this up. How active are you guys communicating with your teams right now in the midst of this uncertainty? And how active is the general communication on Slack or GroupMe or whatever you guys use to, you know, keep chatter and team camaraderie going during these bizarre times?
Well, we were able to do some stuff.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, Evan. But yeah, we were able to do some stuff for a while in terms of goal setting and talking about what the season is going to mean for us. I think one of the challenges after having you know, won a championship is the challenge to want to get better because you need to, because opponents are going to get better, and if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. But not doing it in a way that makes you feel the pressure of as if you're defending something. And so there's been some talk early on for the Empire of about this is going to be, you know, what do we want this season to be that's not based in just winning? What are our standards? What do we want this experience to be like? And I know Mike has kind of talked about those types of things before. It's a very similar type of approach. We've had some GroupMe chatter. We've had people, you know, get motivated to work out and recognizing the challenges ahead of us, especially New York with having, you know, the epicenter of the crisis. But guys are in really good spirits, and we have some new players that we're excited to showcase this year.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're just kind of communicating on GroupMe and trying to make sure everyone's kind of keeping themselves physically fit. On the leadership side, we're still kind of organizing what we want to have, you know, in terms of team events up until the season starts. I think the important thing is having a real like timeline to know when exactly the season starts, because you don't want to start things too early and run out of communication or, you know, practice planning things or practice sessions you can actually have. So we're kind of waiting on that a little bit, but we have some documents and some stuff for new players to read up on and what we would be theoretically doing in practice and having them run through that as individuals. But we're definitely planning on those kind of team functions even before we can practice. But we just have to have a timeline. So if we have a June timeline, that stuff will probably start in a month or, May-ish. If it's later than that, then we'll start a little bit later. But, we definitely want to have some team sessions before practices or field events start for sure.
Good stuff. Well, it's a strange time, obviously, with such uncertainty. And, I don't want to speculate about when things are going to get rolling again, because honestly, we have very little idea, despite the hundreds of contingency plans that we can try and create. But in times like this, it's good to keep the conversation going. Obviously, your team at the league level, and this has been a fun couple of hours in the quarantine. So Mike DeNardis, owner of 2 professional Ultimate teams, thanks so much for making some time for us. And Bryan, I imagine there's an Ultimate Frisbee website in Scotland that will want your services tomorrow. So I imagine you've got many more Ultimate streams to comment on. But thanks for your analysis. Thanks for both of your guys' time tonight. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. And Mike, I promise the next big Flyers game we show, the Flyers are going to win. I promise. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for
thanks
for having. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Good stuff. Thanks to everyone out there who watched and commented and enjoyed it. Thanks to Luke Johnson for pushing the buttons behind the scenes. And hopefully we can all be back together again soon. Quick tease coming up Saturday, AUDL Retro, another triple header of old games. One of those games is right up here with New York and Raleigh in terms of being the greatest regular season games ever. The Los Angeles-Austin game from a couple of years ago that went down to the wire down in Texas, interdivisional play. So that's coming up Saturday night on AUDL Facebook. But for now, we'll say good night for Mike and Bryan and Luke and everyone with the American Ultimate Disc League. I'm Evan Lepler. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.
Tampa tonight. The New York Empire now 3 games away from a perfect season. All 3 games are on the road. We'll see one of them next week at Montreal, a Royale team that upset Toronto today. Does Montreal have another upset in them? That'll be the conversation for the week ahead. Tonight, we catch our breaths after a classic AUDL showcase. We hyped it as the game of the year. It did not disappoint. In double overtime, New York wins it 25-24. For Kurt Gibson and our entire crew, Evan Lepler saying thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one as much as we did. It was an incredible night here in North Carolina, but the Empire remained perfect. Congratulations to New York. Empire's 9-0. See you next week in Montreal.